What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Seasoned Gaming Bitcast, episode 260. We are on time this morning as we come into a week, talking about all the best gaming news of the week, including this week. Baldur's Gate 3 has taken the gaming community, I think it might be fair to say, by surprise to a little degree. We're going to be talking about that extensively, along with rumors of new hardware for all the platforms, including the Switch, PlayStation, and Xbox. We want Travis to kind of talk to us a little bit about what the hell's going on with Destiny, because it seems like a train wreck over there. And we got a few other things to talk about as well. But as always, regular crew back at it. So I'm your host, Ainsley Bowden, joined by this illustrious crew, starting with the bright orange gaming dino in the house, Mr. Rodriguez. How we doing?
Yeah,
bro?
baby.
Doing good, Dan.
I know it. I know how good I look. Nobody's got to tell me this stuff. It's Sunday morning. I even combed my beard a little bit this morning.
Whoa.
Yeah,
All right.
I was like, let's go gaming dino.
He takes those steps for you, audience.
Yes.
Somebody's heading to Crackle Barrel this evening for a little thank you. Yeah,
Yep.
we know.
It's happening.
Is that one of their specials?
Yeah, right next to the meatloaf. It's going to be delicious.
It is when he and his wife are there.
Yeah, that's right.
Got a history.
I clear out the old smoking section they used to have and just like, everybody over here. Yeah, no.
Smoking sections. You remember those?
Yeah.
No, I live in California. Those have been dead for like 30 years.
Well, the best thing about that, they used to be like where it was like, okay, here's the smoking section. There was no like barrier or anything.
No,
like,
it's just like there's a table here and a table here.
Yeah, that was it. Man,
exactly.
Those were the days.
I waited tables many years ago now, and we had a big smoking section at the front, and then all the other tables are over here. Strange to look back on nowadays, I guess. But anyway, Mr. Hoeg, Lawyers and Dragons, rocking along. How we doing, brother?
Yeah, I got to represent traipsing through dungeons this week. It's been very exciting for the dungeon traipsing community. But no, I'm doing well. We just had the Lawyers and Dragons Season 2 finale yesterday.
Saw that.
And we had Captain Fraud, Travis's character, show up. I don't even think he knows that. If you are interested in seeing Travis participate in our Dungeons and Dragons experience, we do have a recap up of episode 7. You're looking for the recap from episode 7 on my channel, the HoegLaw channel, and you can see Captain Fraud Esquire in all his glory. Maybe not Baldur's Gate 3 levels of glory. We can talk about that as well. But Travis is on the recap, and you can check it out there.
There you go. Nice. And Travis, the fraudster himself. That's a perfect name for you, by the way.
Captain Fraud. I mean, that's people have been calling me that for years in the IGN comment section. So yeah, I was like, that's actually a good name. I should throw that on something.
I think you should just run with it.
Yeah. Captain Fraud definitely hangs out in the smoking section. But not because he smokes. He just likes wearing smoking jackets, and he thinks it sounds fancy if he stays in the smoking section. So, you can't. Fun fact: you can't wear a smoking jacket unless you smoke. They don't let you. I've tried. They won't sell you one. They're like, "Do you smoke? Let me smell your breath." I'm like, "All right, fine."
Let me smell your breath.
Yeah, you can always tell. You always tell the menthol. You smell the menthol.
They have like vaping jackets now. Is that how they?
Yeah. I think there's definitely a uniform for people who vape, but I don't know if they're up to jacket quality.
It's not
people.
a jacket.
Yeah, I don't know if they're there. I'm doing good, man. I wrote some real journalism articles this week. Published some stuff. Got a review done that isn't live yet, but it'll be live in a bit. And I'm out here living, homies. Published a few previews. Preview of Palia, which I can finally talk about. I've been playing that for a month. Preview.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that.
I published like 2 previews in one day, but I can't remember what the other one is already. Yeah, I'm doing some stuff, guys. It's cool. That's what
Travis is working.
I'm out here
working it,
and twerking.
By the way, Elise Lynch says, "I like Hoeg's shirt." There you go, Hoeg.
Yeah, I do too.
We're off to a good start. Sam says,
"Big
Bitcast, my favorite."
That's the vape uniform.
That's the vaping shirt. There it is.
There it is. You found it.
Honestly, if Hoeg pulled out a vape pen and just like did like one of those. You know how they always like try to hide that
They kind of lean to the side.
Yeah, they lean to the side and they smoke it, but then they don't try to hide it all. The biggest cloud of vapor you've ever seen. If he like did that and then just like blew a giant cloud, I would lose my mind and I would leave the stream. Like, I don't think I could even operate for the rest of the day if I saw that. Just visually, my brain would overload. I don't know if that.
I don't think I can pull that off for you, Travis, but I appreciate
it. I don't think even if you were trying to just mess with me that you could do it. Like, because even if you were doing it just to mess with me, it would still break my brain. I don't know if I could. I would just be like, I'm sorry, guys. I'm going to call it a week. I'll see you guys next Sunday. See how that works out.
Oh man, Sam Saxey says Bitcast, my favorite Sunday show to listen while I cut my grass. Hey, as long as we're keeping you company, we're all good.
I think that's a euphemism.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Could be.
For what? I don't know. But
I don't know either. All right, we're gonna start off with a comment that we got on last week's video from James Pingle, who's in the chat here on the Seasoned Gaming side. And I thought this was funny because I don't know if he realizes it, but if you don't realize, the audience doesn't realize it, Dan has like 350 hours into Metal Gear Solid 5.
I do.
We've never been able to figure out why, kind of like Forbidden West.
I mean,
but
game.
he has that much time into it. And as you may also know, we've debated quite a lot on this channel about live service games in general. So the topic, or excuse me, the comment says, completely off topic, but my brother is replaying Metal Gear Solid 5 right now, and talking about it, I came to the realization that if Metal Gear Solid 5 had been a live service game, it would have been way, way better. The looting of each other's mother base, the goal of getting to zero nukes worldwide where it can start, add in seasonal events upgrades for mother base and your soldiers, and eventually add the third map to that game that never was, and it would have gone from good to great. So I wanted to bring this up just to get your thoughts, Dan, and I'm sure Travis will chime in too. I only have a few hours in Metal Gear Solid 5. I found that game way too ridiculous to continue with. But I know that you play the heck out of it and you adore live service, Dan. So what do you think about this?
No, I mean, I think it does a good enough job by itself without the live service aspects. Here's the thing about that game. A lot of people, they will kind of put it down a little bit, but I would argue that there's a lot of it that's listen, I can't explain my 350. I have 350 hours. I have no idea how that happened, right? But the best thing about but the thing about Metal Gear Solid 5 was that it was one of the first games that I played that really gave you the freedom to do basically anything you wanted. Like, here's a situation, and people say stuff like that about other games.
Rap. Sorry.
Like
I thought we were getting parents just don't understand for a second.
No.
They don't
go back.
Yeah, I'm not that far back. But it gave you the freedom to do basically anything you wanted to do, or tackle a situation any way you wanted to. And it really kind of, just caught my attention. And I don't know if it's one of those games where like you pause it and it also gives you, there's a lot of times, back then I would pause games and just let them sit there for like hours on end. So, I don't know, some of those hours might be a little inflated, but there's a lot of games that people hold up. It's like, oh, you can do it this way. You can do it this way. Metal Gear Solid 5, you could do a mission or a base incursion or whatever it was so many different ways. The narrative, I don't understand what Kojima's doing. Nobody really does. If they say they do, they're lying. But it's
now wait a minute. I mean, that's the problem with 5, and I'm not even sure it's 5 as much as it's V. I still haven't decided whether Kojima was just calling it V or not.
Yeah.
But Metal Gear Solid 5 doesn't tell a good story, and even when it's a fun sandbox, which I agree with,
right?
Metal Gear Solid as a series has been known for telling complete stories. Whether or not you like them or not is, I guess, up to the taste of the player. But Metal Gear Solid 5 just kind of stops, just kind of tuckers out, runs out of breath, and dies.
Oh, there's none. I mean, I couldn't tell you what it's about, honestly.
Okay.
It's about language and culture.
But I take issue with Ains' statement that it is too ridiculous to play. The idea that any video game could be too ridiculous is insane. Games are, by definition, supposed to be ridiculous.
Yes, they are. No, I didn't have fun with the game.
I don't think it requires ridiculousness.
I think it's certainly a virtue in the games industry to be a little bit ridiculous.
Well, and I think Kojima plays with that at the beginning, and if you don't like that first hour of ridiculousness, it is going to put you off because Kojima is going to explain some of it, but not well. And he does a lot better job with Death Stranding, honestly, because he throws a lot of ridiculous stuff at you up the front. And then you get to the end of that and you say, well, okay, that actually had some meaning and some reason behind it.
Yeah. The game has the opposite problem. The game is boring to play, but it's got a good story, and Metal Gear Solid is fun to play and has a bad story. So yeah,
Metal Gear Solid is fun to play, but I would argue Death Stranding is fun to play as well.
Yeah, well, no counting for taste.
No, I have a good time with all those games. Yeah, I don't. When I play a Kojima game, I don't go in there and I'm like, okay, I don't really want to get wowed by this story and get blown away by the it's Kojima again. I hate to say this, but he's like the Nolan of video games.
Boy.
Everybody just loves him
you
so much. You
insulted Nolan enough last week, all right?
Listen, I'm just saying,
I'm sure he'd be happy to know he's the Christopher Nolan of video games.
He'd love it.
Yeah.
They would love it.
He would go nuts.
Those guys get together. I can't even imagine.
First of all, their styles aren't even really similar. You know what I mean? Like I don't.
No, Nolan's comprehensible.
I think Dan is just saying he is Christopher Nolan in overratedness, not in style.
He's very overrated. But I love it.
But you could point to other people that are also highly rated and have a style that's a lot more. You know what I mean? Like Guillermo del Toro and he all have collaborated. That's like an easy one. You know what I mean?
Yes, but maybe he doesn't think Guillermo del Toro is overrated.
Mostly because I don't watch a lot of his films, and that's basically it.
Make a lot of films.
Yeah, he doesn't. What do you make that Pinocchio? Yeah, I mean, listen.
You went with Pinocchio.
He's a lot of.
He said, "Let me pull out a Del Toro movie."
Yeah,
Pinocchio, the well-known one.
The last one, yeah. Anyway,
I mean, it was rated extremely well. So
yes, it was. I didn't say I liked it.
I haven't seen it, but
yeah. So I mean, listen. Basically, what I'm trying to say is, I think it doesn't get enough credit for what it does as a sandbox game. And a lot of people will hold, and myself included, like Red Dead 2 up here with like, oh, there's all this stuff that can happen. But listen, at the end of the day, if you're going in on a mission in Red Dead 2, you have to do it the way Rockstar intended you to do it, right? And that's it. You can't.
Well, I mean, Red Dead's taking strays here, but I don't mind.
Right, I'm just telling you, it's not something where you can. Okay, we got this mission. This is what we have. If you step 3 feet out of the circle of this is what you have to do, you fail the mission. You don't do that in Metal Gear Solid 5. It gives you that freedom to do that kind of thing any way you want to, and that's why I enjoy it. But it's also, it's not great. But I do have 350 hours in it. So what do you?
No, I think it's solid and it's doing stuff that a lot of people haven't matched even yet.
Yeah, I agree.
Travis, what's going on over there, man?
Oh, I'm just being horrified by the fact that a giant swarm of crows appears to have appeared outside my house, and I can hear them squawking wildly. And it doesn't sound like, oh, it's like birds. It sounds like, oh, like somebody cast a spell. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like oh, there's like a feast going on, like they're killing someone or something. It's not like pleasant bird noises. And I was wondering if it was being picked up on the mic, but it sounds like it's not. It's just horrifying to me. It's very distracting.
It's just Travis losing his mind in the corner. We don't hear anything.
Yeah, don't worry about me. I'm just one square on the show, just stuck in the abyss, apparently.
If the shadow calls itself over your entire frame, we'll know something's up.
When you guys see the swarm encircle me overhead and swarm in, that's when you can start worrying.
Oh my God.
There's a ravens. They're huge, by the way. I don't know if you've seen how big those birds are, but they're like a dog sized. They're big. They're big birds, dude. They're huge. Anyway.
But I do think Metal Gear Solid 5 was, tiptoeing into live service land. You saw that a little bit with, I'm going to forget the name of it, but what is the Metal Gear with the zombies?
Revengeance?
No,
Survive. You're right.
Survive, yeah.
Metal Gear Solid,
which is more obviously a live service game. So I suspect Konami wanted to move more in that direction, maybe even more than Kojima was comfortable with. Part of the problem with Metal Gear Solid 5 for me is that Kojima seems over it, whether that's the relationship with Konami, whether that's Metal Gear as a property. There isn't that kind of passion and love that you get in even Metal Gear Solid 4 as a vibe.
No, that's fair.
You know what,
agree.
Ains? I take it back. You were right. This was a slow news week. We're talking about Metal Gear Solid 5, my dude. I don't know what happened. How did we get here? But, yeah, no, you're right. No, it's a slow news week indeed. Talking about Metal Gear Solid. I don't know what happened. Should we get to currently playing, since I assume no one's playing Metal Gear Solid 5? Should we?
I'm not.
Dan probably is, but we
No,
can
you know what?
move on.
I'll
Metal Gear
start
Solid
off.
5 is a good analog for Hitman, isn't it? I mean, those
It
are
is.
similar kind of.
Yeah.
Right. You
Yeah,
can do
he
whatever
probably
you want.
played it because Hitman didn't exist yet. He needed to
Right.
prepare himself.
So
Right,
we figured out that Dan, in his narrow hallway of game
Yes.
approach, prefers games where you can kill people
He
in
loves
any
it.
way.
Murder
that you want.
Sandbox.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Murder Sandbox is Dan's thing. Okay,
That's basically me. Yeah.
That's actually what he called the sandboxes he played in as a kid as well.
It keeps me in line. That's all it does. It's my outlet.
got
I'm gonna start
All
off. I've been playing. So I bought this game. I bought Weird West. Like,
Oh, yeah,
Nice.
I reviewed that
Good
game.
yeah,
Great
never. I bought it. Well, I think when it
Good
came
game.
out. Well, it had an update. They got like a definitive edition. I think they released this year sometime. Anyway, I started playing that, and I was really liking it. And then all of a sudden, my whole character went away, and I started off with this new one. I guess this is the hook of the game where you play as different characters. I had no idea, so I was
It's a bunch of small stories.
right. I didn't realize
That come together.
Okay,
They come
well,
together later in the game.
That's fine. I just it
Kind
kind
of
of
like
took
State
the
of
wind
Decay,
out of
actually.
my sails a little bit. You know, when I was because I was really like I was like, man, this this is actually kind of fun. You know, like I like the story's kind of cool. Kind of well written for something that I didn't really think would be. Arcane, I think Arcane does work on it, right? Like,
Yes.
Yeah, you can tell. You can tell by like the skills when you go in there and you upgrade your character, and like some of them are like directly ripped from like Dishonored. Like I was like, man, that looks like something, And so I was really having a good time with it, kind of a twin stick shooter kind of thing, and it was. And then all of a sudden I'm a pig man, and I'm just like, what in the hell? Everything I've done up to this point is gone. So I didn't know what to do at that point, and so I stopped playing. That was yesterday. I don't know if I'll go back. I assume maybe I will. I feel like I've lost all my progression, and I don't like
lost
that.
your progression.
Well, I mean, I don't, I know I have like the certain skills that you carry over. I'm not sure if they all do or not, but I have no weapons. I have all my inventory's gone. It's just it's kind of I don't like that. I'm not a big fan.
I love Dan going through the 5 stages of grief because he got to chapter 2 of a video game.
It was literally, yeah. I played it for like 4 or 5 hours. I was like, oh man, this is all right. And then all of a sudden I'm like, man, this is kind of deflating. So I'll probably go back and see what, give it a little bit extra time, but whatever. Not, I thought you could pick your character, and I thought I just missed because I knew there were 5 characters, but I thought I just missed the character selection screen at the beginning, and then as I started playing, I kind of looked something up, and I was like, wow, you got a what is this?
No, it's a story told, as Hoeg said, it's a story told through the eyes of 5. I don't remember the number. You're saying it's 5.
It's
5
like 5
characters that come together in the end, right? And they basically line it up to where they have influence on each other's kind of destinies, if you will. So it's not brilliant, but I really enjoyed it. I had a good time with that game.
Yeah, that's pretty much all I've been playing.
All right. So what's this Palia game you guys are talking about?
Hell yeah. I'll
Tell me
start us
about
off. So Palia is a game I've been working on a preview for and some news coverage and stuff for like a month and a half. So the game has been like playable and been being developed for a while, but it's been under super heavy NDA and only a small number of people have had access to it. And they've been really tight on anybody being able to talk about this game much at all until this week, August 2nd, which actually was delayed. Like I was supposed to be able to talk about this game like a month ago, and then they were like, we need more time. So they pushed it out even further. It is the world's first cozy MMO, which means it is a massively multiplayer online game, but also a community sim game like Animal Crossing or Stardew Valley or Disney Dreamlight Valley. It was probably more close. Yeah, it's like it's got all the stuff you'd want in a community sim. You build your house, you do cozy activities like gardening and fishing and foraging. This game's also got a little bit of hunting, which isn't in every game, but also always bug catching for whatever reason. And then you also hang out with friends and you improve your social links. It has dating sim mechanics, obviously, because that is something that the cozy sim community is
Talking
super
Dan's
into.
language.
That's right, baby. And yeah, I've put like maybe 40 hours into Palia over the past month and a half. My fiance has put easily 150. Actually, this is a great story. So not that many people had access to the friends and family server over at Palia during its closed alpha. It was like a pretty small group. And of the people that played during my like 40 hours with it, I would notice that sometimes I would see like certain usernames on, but like my server would have like maybe one person or two people in it. It was like not big at all. It wasn't populated really at all. But me and my fiance, we played like a lot because she's super into this type of game and I was doing a preview for it. So we just played a lot together. A couple weeks ago, before my preview went live, somebody at the developer called me and I was like, oh, that's kind of weird. And the first thing they asked was, okay, just checking in. How's your time with it? Is your preview ready to go? And you remember the August embargo, blah, 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 stuff like that. And then this person revealed the real reason that they had called me. They were like, oh, by the way, I just wanted to ask you, people at the studio are wondering why one player that we gave alpha access to has like 8 times more playtime than anybody else. And it's not somebody we recognize. Like it's not somebody like GameSpot or whatever. And I said, oh, that's my fiance. They were like, oh, she's just playing for the love of the game. I was like, yeah, she's played this game a lot. And they were calling me just to be like, what is happening? Like, why is one of the codes we gave to IGN being played like 200 hours? Like what is happening on that profile? And it was very fun because then I got to call my fiance and like call her out and be like, dude, you played so much Palia, the developer called me to ask what was wrong. They're like, is everything okay? Like, what's going on over there? Like, we noticed one player has like way too many hours in this game. So yeah, it was pretty funny, but it's a really cool game. And if you just like really like chill, kind of laid back games, it's fun and you can play it with your friends and like go on little mini adventures together. And it's got a bunch of mechanics that are that encourage you to like adventure together and travel around. And so I provided Hoeg and his go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you, but what would an adventure look like? Because it sounds like this game's not really focused on armor and combat and going to kill some gigantic thing together, right?
Correct.
So like what's
an adventure would be like, all right, hey, we're going to travel out to one of the biomes that's further away and we're going to try to just see what stuff we can find. And maybe you'll find like a rare bug or an animal that you're hunting, or you'll stop to fish and somebody will catch like some unexpected fish. And it's sort of just like all of the like, I mean, if you've played like a cozy game, you kind of know the activities, right? It's like the categories are like stuff you do at home, like gardening and making furniture and building and decorating. And then the stuff that you do when you're out, which is like collecting materials and collecting animals and, just doing stuff like that. But it's not combat. You do upgrade your tool set, which is kind of interesting. It does have like some RPG mechanics where you do stuff like upgrade your bow to make it better or your fishing rod. And that kind of changes some of the options you have. So there is like a progression system, but the progression is not about like you getting more powerful and stronger. It's about you unlocking more cosmetic options so that you can make your house even better and getting money so that you can improve your house and upgrade the land that you own and stuff like that. So it's just typical kind of like customization. I want to have like a perfect house and invite my friends over to cook ramen with me. And then you can do that in the game. Like it's just, honestly, it's one of those games where like, you're like, I don't really get even what I'm doing. And then you see like the next reward and you're like, oh, but I do want that. And they're like, why do you want that? And you're like, I don't know, but I need to upgrade my house. I need to get a second floor. Like there's just
carrot on a stick game.
Yeah, it's carrot on the stick, and the game is surprisingly like addictive. Like the more you play it, I'm sure everybody here has a story of that, right? Like some game where they're like, I don't know why I was drawn to it, but I just couldn't put it down. It just kind of had like an addictive loop, and the things I was doing were were, you know, not immediately like super exciting. Like The Sims. The Sims is kind of like one of those games. You're like, why am I playing this? And the longer you play it, you're like, but I've got to get promoted at work. Obviously, that's got to happen.
Bars need to be filled, y'all.
Yeah, bars need to be filled, so I just got to play it. But yeah, I had provided HoegLaw with some early access copies before the closed beta was out. And the open beta, by the way, for anybody who's interested, starts on August 10th, which is in 4 days. So if you're interested in playing, everyone will be able to play within this next week. But Hogan and his family got some chance to play it, so hopefully they have some thoughts as well.
I mean, we're pretty careful in our household with like MMOs and online activities. And so one of the things I wanted to do when Travis was talking about this was to check it out for myself. There's a couple things I would say on this, and this might just be entirely in my own head. One is that when he describes it as a cozy MMO, when even they describe it as a cozy MMO, I tend to think of it as a smaller, stripped down experience. And it is not that. It is practically a World of Warcraft type game. It just doesn't have, you know, raid bosses and things. It's focused more on that Dreamlight Valley approach. And that works really, really well for my daughter. But if you pop over to Palia, and I think we should spell it Palia, you'll be able to see their graphics and you can see their trailer and everything else. It's real, for lack of a better word. It's a real game. It's not like a really stripped down experience. It just has a different focus. And I think it's going to be very, very popular, especially with people that sound like Travis's fiance and my daughter. Like, she was immediately interested in pursuing it. And it's kind of like the evolution of some of the games that she has played from like National Geographic and others that have been more focused on specifically the small child experience, but upgraded to a more teen or adult experience, but without all the baggage that often comes with MMOs and video games. So, I mean, I think it's gonna win a lot of hearts and minds.
So do I.
Nice.
And I think it's really cool. Like, this team is pretty passionate about the cozy genre, and I think that they know their audience. And I think I am starting to understand their audience better than I thought, because I like cozy games. I never thought there was anything like weird about that. But like, when I told the IGN team, like, hey, I've got a bunch of Palia codes, who wants to play? Literally every single person that was like, I want that, give me that code, was a woman. And I think that that's kind of significant.
It leans that way, yeah.
It leans that way, and I think that's kind of awesome. I think that's cool that like genres are starting to emerge that like appeal more to like a female fantasy and are more appealing to what they're looking for in games. And
I will tell you, my daughter,
awesome.
If you played Animal Crossing, they had a DLC called the Happy Home Designer, and it just has the various animals from the islands ask for something specific, like I want a sporty house or whatever. And it gives you some ideas as to what to put in there, and then you're left to your own devices. I think my daughter has done like 350 houses. Like, I think that the rotation in the DLC has run out of new ideas. This has not stopped her from doing more houses. Wow. And so, like, this is right where she lives as a game.
Awesome.
Yeah, and the thing that, speaking to like a slightly more adult audience, the thing that's drawn my fiance in is my fiance likes anything with dating options, and the characters are super well written, and the paths that you can choose to like leveling up their social links are impressively deep. Like, they're giving you quests all the time to like help this person out with whatever their problems are, and then you can decide to turn that into a romantic relationship, and then there's like separate quest line for that, and it's just sort of got like a really cool kind of like, oh, you get to know these characters and like become friends with them, and it feels like you're just making like digital friends in addition to the real life friends that come with you on your adventures, the fellow players.
Yeah, you say dating options. It is more of that social link concept. It's the hearts and helping them out with quests and doing things to make them your friends, and then
does it
going
have a
further,
patch?
but not Baldur's Gate further again.
Not Baldur's Gate further, but the reason I call it dating sim, and the reason I call, like, I know we've disagreed on the definition of dating sim before. It's because if you look at dating sims that founded kind of that genre, there's certain like tropes and mechanics that come from that, and they're immediately recognizable. And so anytime there's social links in a game, that's sort of like, even if it's not specifically focused on like romance or sex, in Baldur's Gate's case, it's still a dating sim mechanic. That's sort of like,
I like it when you call it social links.
So social links are another word for it. But yeah, they're to me, they're like inextricably linked with like the dating sim genre, because that's sort of where they came from. And that's certainly how like my fiance and some of the people at IGN think of it as well. They were like, "Oh, dating sim mechanics, like I'm all in. Like I want to play that, a version of that is also Dreamlight Valley." So yeah, man, I think it's going to be huge. I think probably this panel has limited interest, but I like cozy games. I super enjoyed my time with it, and you can check my preview out on IGN.com. And yeah,
no, I do too.
I'll probably play more. Yeah,
and it's wide open as a genre, and I really don't think anybody has tried something like this. And I think I asked you about it, Travis, but the business model long term is intended to be free to play. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah. So it's free to play. The only way they're monetizing is by clothes that your character wears. That's like the one thing you can't get in game. You just have to buy that if you want it. And that is fantastic for them because a lot of people really care about that. But it also means that they aren't doing things like taking part of the games that they consider to be core to the progression. Like, for example, furniture and upgrading your house and stuff like that. Like none of that is monetized. So you can do anything in the game except for get better duds for your character without paying. And so that's their business model, which is pretty cool. And yeah, just talking with the developers, when they originally showed me the game, they brought me into their world and we just played multiplayer together for a couple hours, and they had this huge house with like every material you could think of. And they were just explaining their idea of the game. And they said, look, we love cozy games. We thought, wouldn't it be cool if cozy games were more multiplayer focused? And we had no idea what that would look like when we set out to make the game. We were just like, what if you mashed those two things together? Would that be fun? And then they tried to make a way to make it be fun. And I think they so far are largely succeeding. And I think the open beta is going to be a complete hit around a certain audience. You probably won't see it a lot on your Twitter stream, Ains, with your Halo players and stuff. But I think a lot of people are going to be really into this game. So
who's the developer again?
Singularity
6.
Okay.
Yeah,
someone was asking in the chat.
Cool.
Singularity 6. No, I think it's funny you mentioned that right at the end. Well, one, you didn't answer my question. Is there a pumpkin patch involved? Because you may get me to.
There actually is a pumpkin patch involved. You
it's
meet
not
a
pumpkin patch.
Yeah,
you meet. Patch.
It's not my safe word version. No, it's just a regular pumpkin patch. But yeah, there is a pumpkin patch because you meet a dad joke making farmer who teaches you how to garden, and he teaches you how to grow pumpkins. So
okay. The other thing I was going to say on your last point there, I was talking to someone else about that recently, which is this is kind of a broader topic, but there's a lot of misconceptions, I think, with people. You get very kind of narrowly focused on the games that you typically engage with, the people you talk about those games with, and your algorithm on the social sites around those games, right? And I had someone ask me late last week, or maybe it was over the weekend, end of last week when I started playing Baldur's Gate 3, right, when it first released. And they were like, is this game going to have any audience at all? It seems like I don't hear anyone talking about it. And I was like, this game's going to be big. Like,
it already is big.
Well, yes, exactly.
Yeah, it had like 300,000 players on the first day. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's kind of the point, right? Is the point I was trying to make is just like, be careful about assuming certain games are popular or, that there's an audience for them just based on what you see on a daily basis, because that is very curated to your taste. And it's a very huge global gaming audience out there. Like, I never see anything about Pokemon. Pokemon's like the biggest damn IP in the world. So, it's just. And
I see it a lot. I think I have my algorithm thinks that I'm a 7-year-old girl, a 50-year-old man, a 8-year-old boy,
very fair.
Like a nerd, a jock. I think I just preview and play too many games, and I've had to Google look up different video games and stuff. They just think I'm like 90 different things. So I get some weird advertisements, man. It'll be like
outside of the jock thing. I think it nailed it, really.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a jock, but they, I think they think I am because
now let's talk about the Pac-12.
Yeah. No,
oh man.
But that's cool, guys. So it's a Palia, right?
Yep, that's right.
Palia.
You got it right.
That's what I said. Yeah. Travis is out there. Okay, what I said. And it sounds someone in Hoeg chat just said they just signed up for beta access. So good stuff. It's good stuff. Thank you for sharing that, guys. What is happening?
Oh,
also, that was Hoeg.
Yeah, I guess it just immediately went up because I still have the controls to the channel. I'm sorry. I was trying to give you the option, not take over the stream.
Yeah.
Well, it's because it conflicts with the overlay. If you want to show it, you can show it right now. Go ahead.
Yeah, they've also got a really cool trailer there. It's a cinematic trailer. It's very
Yeah, I just wanted to highlight that it's a much kind of bigger thing than, at least in my head.
I really like the
description.
art style. The art style is really cool.
It's a beautiful game, man. It's really is cool looking.
I know,
Nice.
it looks good.
Mm-hmm.
That's definitely cool. Yeah, I think it's not my type of game, as you joked about, Travis, but I think like if it was another time where we were sitting in a drought for games, it might be something I'd check out. We're in the complete opposite time right now. So I'm never gonna touch it. But I'm glad that it sounds like it's gonna find an audience and that you guys are really enjoying it. So it's good.
I don't think it's gonna have a lot of crossover with a lot of the other successful games. And I think that's why 2023 is so bonkers, is because it's not just like, oh, it was a great year for shooter fans. It's like, no, dude, it was a great year for every type of fan. Like fighting games got like 3 or 4 they're gonna get by the end of the year.
We have another one to talk about.
Yeah, 4 of the biggest fighting games ever. It's great for like adventure games. It's great for RPGs. It's great for open world. It's great for cozy games, apparently. Like, it's just such a crazy year for so many different genres.
Yeah, literally everything. It's nuts. Any other games you want to talk about currently playing before we jump into Baldur's Gate 3? Because that's going to be a bigger topic.
Yeah, well, I've been playing Palia, as we were talking about. I've also been playing Season 1 of Diablo 4.
Okay.
Where I'm right in the middle of that area that we've talked about, I know, in conversation before, of the level grind in Diablo 4 that just doesn't work for me for like any of the people that I've tried, which is like the mid to late 20s and early 30s. So I got to go and figure out how to get through that to get further in my season story. But I really love Diablo 4. And so I've been playing a lot of that. I've been playing a bunch of Remnant 2. We've talked a lot about Remnant 2.
Yes, we have.
I have to say, I got past the cubes. That's what we were talking about with me last week. I really hate
your favorite boss fight of all time.
I think they're terrible. I think they are a mistake. They have soured me on the Remnant 2 experience, and I've only just kind of gotten over it a little bit, but that's okay. Travis loves them. Travis has a big review title, so he got the big number over at the big site. I would have given it a lesser number at a lesser site because of the cubes. Just would have said cubes on it.
Just because of the cubes.
But the biggest problem I have with Remnant 2 right now is that I had hoped that the world experiences would kind of come together a little bit more, and it's a little bit bifurcated in how its storytelling is operating more than the first game was, in my opinion. So because of that randomness, because of the things that Travis has talked about glowingly, and I think are rightly said, it does prevent it from having a more cohesive type of overall narrative thrust.
Yeah, I talk about that in my review too. Like, I think the overall story of like, oh, you're fighting the root gets a little bit lost in the minutia of like, hey, here's 3, or actually it's 6 if you play multiple times, but for each player, 3 stories that are sort of non-congruous, but they are super interesting stories. Like
they're good stories.
Yeah, like that you get to hear 3 kind of cool. Yes, maybe Dan would hate it because they're vignettes, right? Like it's like a kind of a Weird West situation. You get 3 like cool self-contained stories, and then you go back to the main story at the end. And I think that they do a bit of a better job of bringing it together when you get to the end. But there is a period of time when you're going through 3 separate worlds where you're kind of like, I mean, these are cool, but like I kind of forgot what I'm doing for the main root problem that's not really being discussed right now. What story did you get after Cube Labyrinth? Which one did you end up?
The Fae. I don't remember.
Oh, damn.
What world?
Yeah, so you're in the Fae version of Lassam. So Lassam has 2 versions. One which is like, what's the Ains, you'd know this. What's the Knights in Gallantry part of Dark Souls? That castle place you go to.
Oh, holy crap!
You go back in Dark Souls 3.
I literally heard it this morning. I was watching a show where they talked about
Lothric.
Well, there is Lothric, but you're also thinking of something else. I know what you're talking about, but go ahead.
Yeah, anyway. the Golden City. Anyway, there's 2 versions. One of it, you get the Fae version, which is all like high fantasy knights gallantry, gargoyles and angels, and then there's the other version which is like dirty Brits in the street, bloodborne, gross monsters. And so you got the Fey version, which means you will probably never see or see very little of
It's
the
Anne Orlando, by the way.
Anne Orlando, thank you. Yeah, so there's like Anne Orlando and there's Bloodborne, and you got Anne Orlando, which I think is kind of the worst world, but I think the story is really cool. And they, depending on which side quests you get, you could end up playing chess with the evil knight, which is kind of hilarious. So yeah, excited to see how you enjoy that.
I like it.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, the self-contained worlds are dope.
Dan, did you finish it? I know you
No.
were right on the cusp.
No, I've gone back and played several times, and failed several times. And I will say this: my son loves this game. I mean, this is all he's been playing, and he's got almost every. He's very close to getting the Archon. He's just leveling up like one class that he needs to level up or something, and then like he's gotten to the point now where he's like, okay, I'm done searching for all this crap myself. So he's going on and like kind of checking out like different builds and stuff. Got all kinds of weapons that I don't know how he found them. It's too much, it's just too much. But I think I respect it. I mean, I think I've never seen a game like it where it's just there's so much to discover. It's just like I don't have the time to put into it to make those discoveries. I'm glad
I don't
other
think
people
anybody's
do.
about to have the time anymore, because like
I
when
mean,
Baldur's Gate 3 out and the next batch of crazy good games coming out, I think Remnant 2's time in the sun is sort of coming to an end. They released this game strategically at like this little window that they saw in between Starfield and what Diablo 4. And I think that, if you don't play this game like this next week, you're probably never going to end up playing it because it's about to get buried. But I really appreciate it, and I hope more people play it. It's a very
I think I liked it. For something that I thought I was not going to even enjoy for like a second, and there was a moment at the very beginning where I was like,
was it the cubes?
No, it was not the cubes. The cubes were really, really easy for me for some reason. I'm not sure why. I think I finished it in my second try.
Smoked, Hoeg. Your biggest ally, and not like
a skill-based. It's not a skill-based boss, so it's fine.
Yeah.
They're turning on each other, Travis.
Dan, did you like that encounter though? Like conceptually,
it was so short.
Yeah,
like,
it was. Really short,
it was like I feel like.
That's
like
my one complaint with
idea.
it. I wish it was longer, but I love the concept. Like it's just such a cool idea for a boss.
There was
what if it were 3 times as long?
I'm gonna say, if you want it to be longer, try it 40 times.
I thought it was cool. I think it was definitely something I've never seen before again, and I think that kind of, for me, somebody who doesn't play games like that, a lot of this was like a new experience for me. Trying to
love it.
Build your character up a little bit, figure out like exactly what's going to work, what's not going to work. I don't like that typically, but I think this game kind of bridged the gap with something. I don't know if it was a gunplay or
I do keep waiting for like a mod set to really kind of gel with me.
Yeah, it sort of depends on which worlds you get first, because some of the biomes are so specific toward certain builds, and I think because you got Nerud first, Hoeg, you had the same experience I did, where I was like, I have a lot of random stuff that doesn't really work for me, and then I got to Yesha and I was like, oh, I get it, this is my world, like this has got all the stuff I want in it. So it's kind of interesting that way, but
it's good, and it's got a lot of cool little bits of lore. I really like playing the game, but yeah, I guess when we transition to the second world is when my check was, how are you building this into a full unified experience? And the answer is mostly they're not.
Correct. Yeah, they do fail in that one. I hit them pretty hard on story in the review. Maybe we can end the segment by just having Dan say "get good" to Hoeg, since he.
I'm never going to say that to anybody. Ever.
Never going to say "get good."
Ever is my.
Sorry, what aren't you ever going to say, Dan?
No. I hate it. Like that was like when this whole thing started, and that's what I saw the most. Like when the whole Souls-like stuff began, like Dark Souls 1. Like when that game came out and I played it, and that's when that whole stupid saying started, and I hated it because I'm like, this is not. Listen, I'm old. right? And I've got like a actual like problem with my hand shaking, like it's diagnosed. So it's not like something I like. Sometimes on a controller I have to like put it down because I shake so much, and it's just it doesn't work for me. I don't like the gatekeeping aspect of that whole community.
Okay,
and it's huge. It's huge.
Yeah. If you were going to dive into the whole Get Good thing, I think at the time it was invented, Get Good was used ironically because people would complain about things. People would complain about things that were legitimately wrong with Dark Souls because it was a low budget game that had a lot of problems. And then their response was like, oh, we'll just get good at the game. It's not the game's fault, right? But it was the game's fault. The game had like a lot of like game design problems because it was just it was a lower budget game. And I feel like now it's either used one of two ways, either toxically to gatekeep, which obviously anybody who does that is kind of a piece of shit and you should ignore them. But the way I see it being used by people that are less mean is like, look, part of the game is death and you just have to be okay with that. Like, it doesn't mean that that's not, a lot of people balk at the idea of dying in a game. Like, they don't ever want to die, but like certain games are really, death isn't a bad thing. It's not even a step backwards. It's just
part of the game.
It's part of the game. Like you should be expected to die because that's sort of, it's like playing a roguelike and getting upset that you die, right? Like, no, like you have to have failed runs in a roguelike. That's kind of part
Diablo
of the
doesn't expect me to die as much as I do.
Correct. Yeah, that is a separate problem. But certainly like certain genres are repeated failure is part of what makes that genre good. And I think like just like you would expect to die in Hades 2 when it comes out, you should expect to die in a Souls-like, and that doesn't make it bad or gatekeepy. That's just part of the game.
No, that doesn't. No,
Diablo is just like all your stuff is broken now. Beat it now, buddy.
Yeah. But that's what some people mean when they say get good is like, look, just keep playing, right? Like that's the way I see it being used by people who are not rude. But there are some people who are like legitimately like, you have no place playing games because
I would ask legitimate questions is the problem. You know, you would ask for like help on a forum or something like that, and you would be like, hey, is there something I'm doing wrong? And this is before I had, they call them essential tremors, and it was completely, you know, I was fine. And then all of a sudden, you know, it was just like, yeah, you suck at the game. And this, you know, I just never liked that phrase. I hate it. Can't stand it. Yeah. I understand why
it's obnoxious. Yeah.
It's super obnoxious. And listen, it's fine. Not every game's for everybody. And I'm fine with that. And there's a lot of games that I'm going to play that, you know, God damn it, Ains. Every week, I accidentally click on the private chat and I get it just stops me in my tracks with www.getgood.com.
I think it's fair. That's a fair link to share out during the stop conversation.
Everybody play their own. I got 350 more hours I can put into Forbidden West. So
what does Get Good mean to you? Wow, this is like way more in depth than I thought it was going to be. Get Good.
Yeah, there's an actual site. Yeah.
That's
I send that link to people all the time. Anyway, before we get into the longer Baldur's Gate chat, we're nearly an hour in. Let's get to these super chats, and I want to give a shout out prior to super chats to Vintage Willow, who gave 10 subs or memberships, I should say, on the Seasoned Gaming side. Thank you so much, Vintage Willow. You are super appreciated. Nice. So, Dan, let's hit these up, starting, of course, with our pre-show Googleman chat.
The €5. Been playing Sleeping Dogs, a game from 2012 in which, among other stuff, the player can use the toilet in his apartment. Do we like Pop-Tarts? Yes. Yes, of course we do.
Look, I like Pop-Tarts as much as a functioning human can, which is like, wow, that tastes good. Please never feed it to me again. I will die. So,
exactly right. Exactly right.
It's a pastry with fruit jelly. It's a winner.
It's delicious.
Yeah.
Now, hold on, wait a
minute. Or if you're like me, you can get the chocolate one. I get the chocolate one because I'm a monster, and you know, you get that. And you just...
terrible. I like the unfrosted strawberry, which people think I'm crazy, but it's just crazy. It's too much sugar with the frosting on there.
One. You don't want to put the frosting on the strawberry.
Honestly, by the way, great username for Xbox or something. Unfrosted strawberry.
Yeah,
go for it, dude. Hell yeah.
We saw an ad for Pop-Tarts yesterday. This is not a joke either. This is funny timing, Googleman. But I looked at my wife and I said that Pop-Tarts are one of those things where if I didn't care about my health, I would eat them like every day. I love Pop-Tarts.
Right here, I got like 3 boxes upstairs.
I don't even know. I don't even know if it wasn't unhealthy for me, if I would eat it every day, because even if it didn't have any health effects to me, I feel terrible after I've never eaten a Pop-Tart and been like, I'm glad I did that. It was a good idea. You know
Exactly.
what I mean? Like it just makes you feel
I'm ready for the day now.
Just the idea of eating a Pop-Tart, even if it had no negative health effects on me, I feel like it would be draining mentally to eat a Pop-Tart. It's you know how bad it is. I don't know.
Yeah, they wreck me. We've got a debate in both chats going on around the best flavor. Tell us. I gotta agree with Don on this one. He said frosted raspberry. I think I'm with Don on this one. I think
one's not bad.
Raspberry is my thing.
Yeah, I tend to agree with unfrosted strawberry.
I like this is what you do. You take unfrosted strawberry, you toast it just a little bit. Hold on, wait a minute. Then you put butter on it. You butter it up.
Oh,
while it's warm.
I do not butter my Pop-Tart.
Dan, you're literally hurting me right now.
How is he making it worse? He made it worse.
God, it's so good. It's so good. Just butter that Pop-Tart right up.
Oh my God.
Instead of the frosting.
Here in the description.
Oh my God.
I'm telling you, man.
So
I can't do it, man.
He only wanted it to be unfrosted so that he could butter it.
I do like the cinnamon answer. Yes. I do like the cinnamon answer.
Yes, I love the brown sugar cinnamon. That's a good one too.
Oh, Michelle said frosted cherry. How did I forget cherry? I'm switching my vote. Not frosted raspberry. Frosted cherry is the best.
No, raspberry's a superior berry.
Sorry guys. Anything with chocolate on it, I'm just like, fruit. It's like
Google then said butter or Pop-Tart. What is even happening? I don't know. You did this. You did this.
Honestly, you guys judge me for scooped bagels, but that's savage what you guys are doing over there. Okay, I don't.
You guys
don't include me in this conversation. I don't know
who
you guys.
If you include me with scooped bagels, something I would never do, I get to include you with buttered Pop-Tarts. So deal with it, bro. That's the world. That's the world you live in. Okay, you live there.
Until this podcast, I had never in my life, and I'm older, have heard of someone buttering a Pop-Tart ever.
Okay. You guys are missing out.
That's because you it's a don't ask, don't tell over there in Kansas City. Okay, don't ask, don't tell about the butter where you put it. It's just, we all know you get
it just a little bit toasted. You put a little pat of butter on the knife, and
Dan, you're not going to help yourself. You can reword it any way you put. Yeah. No, it's not going to help.
He's trying to rebrand it. He's trying to rebrand the idea of.
I'm telling you,
it's margarine. Okay,
he's going all in on new Coke. He's like, no, listen about new Coke. Like,
this is why crazy here. I'm a butter guy.
The s'mores one's pretty good.
We're gonna do a half food podcast soon.
Yeah. We should have a tangent of the food every episode here. Googleman, thank you as always for our pre-Bitcast super chat. Appreciate you. Cram in the house with a £4.99 super sticker. Thank you very much. I don't know what the sticker was. We've lost it to time at this point in time, but I appreciate it. Was super. I do appreciate it, Cram. Thank you very much. And yes, to answer your comment in the chat, the new statue is literally right there, and it's amazing. So, Tao in the house.
All right, Killer Instinct. It lives.
Yeah.
I assume cool. I don't know what FGC
fighting game community.
Okay. Has never had a year like this one. /next. Have fun, silly bitcasters. Thanks, Tao.
We are on buttered Pop-Tarts, Tao. So I think we've gotten to the silly bitcasting part.
Also, Don over here. Of course, I toast my Pop-Tarts sometimes, depending on which ones, what flavor they are.
Instead of course, and then he followed it by sometimes.
Don't keep it going.
Listen,
Don, don't encourage him.
Listen, sometimes you can eat it. Like, a frosted Pop-Tart requires no toasting, but they're not as good. So, you get unfrosted, a little bit of butter.
Here's where I'd like to advocate for
sweet
the
and savory
oven as an appliance.
Yeah, toaster oven. GOTY.
Fair.
Yeah, you can do that too.
Yeah. Yes, Killer Instinct. If you didn't see the news, Killer Instinct is being revived by Iron Galaxy for the 10-year anniversary. It's going to get a update. It's going to get 4K. It's going to come back with updated matchmaking. So really cool to see in a year that we're already getting, as we've talked about, right? Street Fighter 6, Mortal Kombat 1, and of course Tekken 8. What a time for fighting game community. And Evo's going on too. I mean, it's like the best time ever for fighting games right now.
Killer Instinct was one of my first fighting games. Black cartridge.
The original one? Super Nintendo?
Yeah, bro. Nice. That game, and remember the theme song that played? I can't remember. You were fighting that girl who wears the green spandex, and it played the.
I don't remember her name either.
Song.
But
oh my god, bro!
First seeing that game in the arcade was was a revelation. That was an impressive game when that first came out, no doubt.
First fighting game. I don't even know. Street Fighter 2, I guess.
No, mine would be like Kung Fu, one of those like early arcade from 1980, 81 fighting games.
Do those count?
They were fighting games at the time. I mean, that's what they were. And simple compared to today, of course, but yeah.
They're fighting games like what was that game that was nominated for best fighting game that wasn't a fighting game?
God, Sifu.
Smash Brothers?
Sifu.
Oh, Sifu. Yeah, Sifu is not a fighting game.
Yeah, the Kung Fu game is a fighting game in the same way that Sifu is a fighting game.
Yeah. All right, Tal, thank you very much, man. Always appreciate you. Don in the house. Man. Dan, stop it.
Sorry, Rob Farley coming hot. Anyway, Don with $5 super chat. Good morning, all. I hope everyone is enjoying Baldur's Gate 3. It's truly incredible. EA had better give us Dragon Age Origins remake with Baldur's Gate 3 sales.
I like this comment.
I like it
because I like to talk about complicated role-playing games and not needing to be all actiony, because we just had the Final Fantasy 16 conversation, and I think Baldur's Gate 3 presents a moment in time where we can reflect on what I've always kind of complained about, which is that the game companies and publishers tend to opt out of genres and directions like it's a little bit early. They think that they're cooling or that the audience isn't there a little bit earlier than I would. And I think you've got something like Baldur's Gate 3 doing whatever it is, 700,000 simultaneous on Steam right now.
Yep. And growing.
And it's a wake-up call for people are interested in these different types of gaming experiences, and the market isn't always giving them the opportunity to play these games. So do I think Dragon Age Origins should come out? I mean, I think Dragon Age Origins deserves a remake. It's a tremendous game. But is this a moment in time where these publishers are going to take this and say, well, people want a game like Baldur's Gate 3? I don't know. Because Larian has been making these games for years and years.
Yep.
And in all honesty, if there are people that are popping champagnes, I would be doing it at Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro. Because this is essentially Divinity Original Sin 3. And it's got a coat of Dungeons and Dragons on it, which honestly, I maybe don't love as much as Larian's own stuff. But
it's the worst part of the game.
That's the reason why it's as popular as it is. And I'm thrilled for them. I think Larian's been making great games for a long time. But I don't know what this says about the future for games that are going to be made by folks like Electronic Arts.
Yep.
I think that we've talked about this, I know, in the past, but the gaming market has grown to a point where if your game is good, there's an audience for it, right? And I think that this also has shown the ability of streamers and social media and hype and everything else kind of coming together to drive a game upwards. Because I don't know about you guys, and I know we're going to talk more about Baldur's Gate 3 here in a second, but I have to imagine that there are people buying into the hype and buying this game who have no clue what they're doing.
That's a bad idea.
Maybe probably put it down pretty quickly.
I tend to think that the opposite is true, Ains. Like, your game can be good and there might not be an audience for it. I mean, I love that the games industry is as big as it is, but to Hoeg's point, like Divinity and Divinity 2 were both great games that really didn't gain much of an audience because there's not a lot of appetite for that genre, except in the case where you slap the D&D IP on it, and then all of a sudden it blows up because Wizards of the Coast is just unstoppable with their D&D stuff. And so that's sort of the problem to me is I would have loved a game like Baldur's Gate 3 that had nothing to do with the dumpster fire of like Dungeons Dragons lore. I think it's like the worst part of the game easily is that it's a Dungeons and Dragons game. And but if you try something unique like Dragon Age or Divinity, then people don't buy your game. And so you kind of have to like take a genre that people are so about and mix it with an IP people really care about. And then all of a sudden you have a hit. And I think that's kind of unfortunate because I would love it if Divinity 3 could be as successful as Baldur's Gate 3, but I just don't think that.
You mean Original Sin 3, right? I mean, like the Divinity series is longer than Original Sin.
Correct. Yeah. I'm saying Divinity for the recent ones, Original Sin.
I agree with you. There's no doubt that it's the name on it, right, has helped here and being associated with D&D. There's no doubt whatsoever. But I don't think it's fair to say Original Sin or Divinity Original Sin 2 was a failure. Because I just had to peek. I'm like, I thought that game sold really well. It sold over 1 million copies in the first month. Like,
yeah, I mean,
it did fine. It's obviously it's not going to do as good as Baldur's Gate 3 of what we're seeing, right? But Baldur's Gate 3 not only has D&D, it has Baldur's Gate, which is a legendary IP in gaming to begin with. Then it was in early access for over 3 years.
Yep.
So it's already technically been purchasable for over 3 years, right? So you have a lot of people that are either new to it or people like me who bought it 3.5 years ago and are coming back and playing it now.
Oh,
it's just, I think it's a whole bunch of circumstances coming together, and the game, it helps that the game is excellent. So far anyway, I'm early, but
right. But I don't know that anybody would have had many doubts about that. Certainly as soon as early access happens and you realize how they're going to just bootstrap Original Sin onto the Baldur's Gate kind of franchise, it's like, oh, this is going to work. I don't need to check in on this for the years because this is going to play.
Yep.
And
I did the same thing, Hoeg. When I loaded it up, it said last played over 3 years ago.
Yeah, no, I had played the Nautiloid like day one. Like I remember that they had that cinematic ready. And so I was like, oh yeah, I remember this.
Yeah.
And it was whenever that was. If it was 3 years ago, it was 3 years ago.
Yep.
But it was that first day when they put it in early access.
It was right during COVID, right? It was like right in the middle of the beginning of COVID.
Yeah. And I know that Jason
video and being like, cool.
Yeah.
I know that Schreier put out an article on Bloomberg this week. I didn't read it, but about like the story of development of this game, because it's like there's a whole bunch of stuff around COVID and changing over of people. A whole bunch of stuff went in and caused this game to take as long as it did to come out. But
well, they had a revamp. I mean, like they used the community process pretty well, I think. Hoeg, you broke your early access rule. Yeah, I don't like early access, but yeah, I love Larian. I've liked a lot of Larian games. I might be the only person that plays Dragon Commander still. But Larian has a very weird vibe that is very playful in the gaming space that I've always liked. And they clearly brought that to Dungeons and Dragons. I just think that they have a lot of baggage from Faerun and Baldur's Gate and all the cities and everything else that is maybe not as fun as I would like, because they otherwise are really, really goofy with their lore and their storytelling in a way that I think really works. And they clearly have to be a little bit more staid in the world of Baldur's Gate. And what's interesting there is that so many people are impressed by some of the more kind of weird things they're doing with the space. And it's a lot less than Original Sin 2 did, for instance. But Original Sin 2 doesn't put cheeks in the seats, as it were, apparently. And so I'm glad for them. They deserve this. They are really good game makers.
Yeah. So, well, let's get past the super chats and then we'll get fully into Baldur's Gate 3. So thank you, Don. And Don's got a follow-up, by the way, which we're going to get to as well.
Also, wish you were at GCX, Travis. Was that the Destiny thing?
Yep.
Okay. Got to hang out with Cog and watch a crazy Destiny gear trivia game. I don't play it, so I went to the meetup.
What's funny about GCX is every time they've been referencing it on social media, I keep thinking it's Gamescom. Like they can't be the same week.
It's not, well, Gamescom is next week, right?
2 weeks.
Yeah, 2 weeks. So the GCX is right now. It's happening right now. GCX, which was formerly known as Guardian Com and is now known as Games Community Summit, which is interesting. They've kind of tried to pivot into, hey, this could be more things than just Destiny, but really only Destiny comes to it. My policy has been I will go if I feel like I can actually cover things and produce content and make money off of that event. And last year I went and it was no Bungie developers present, and there were like 4 games that weren't Destiny there, and they were all really big indie projects that I couldn't in good confidence write about because they were just not ready to show. So that was a bust. I kind of got burned on GCX. I probably won't go for a while. But if Bungie used to show up in full force and there was like an opportunity to actually cover and get stories about what's going on in Destiny, if that ever returns, I will definitely go to GCX. But I have an aversion to Florida that knows no bounds. That state is horrifying to me.
They do have large insects.
Yeah, they have large insects and
humidity.
Not all of those are animals. I'm going to stay away as much as I can, but I'll come back if Bungie does. That's my rule, my line of the stand.
And I'm sorry, I didn't mean Gamescom. I meant Gen Con.
Gen Con. Yeah. Okay.
Oh.
Got it.
That is
and Gamescom. It's an M.
See, you just can't shorten GC. It just doesn't work for me.
No, it's GameCube.
Too much going on.
Yeah, it also just used to be called Guardian Con. I don't really get the games community branding. I think they were trying to make a play for, because it's not made the event isn't put on by like Bungie officially. It's put on by like people in the community. And I think they were like, oh, this could be for everyone near the Florida area. And it's like, nobody shows up for it, man. I mean, Destiny shows up for it hard, but that's it. And so I don't even know what E and COG are doing this week. Like, there's nothing to cover. That they just put out one of the worst state of the game articles they've ever published that is depressing. And like, I get that COG and E, they're like super in with that crowd and they just hang out with streamers and YouTubers and people that play the game. But like, I don't know any of those people. Like, you could tell me the most famous YouTuber and I'll have a blank look on my face. Like, I just don't know any of those folks. So I don't care. I don't want to take photos with people, you know, named Banana. I don't want to take a photo with Banana Fart 37, the hottest new Destiny YouTuber. I just don't care about that. All right. So
I do.
Sorry. Yeah, I know you do, Dan. You're a big Banana Fart follower. Big fan. Yeah.
I'm a huge supporter.
Huge supporter.
Patron, everything, man.
Is Gen Con the tabletop one? Is that what you were?
Gen Con board games, yes.
Board games
to that
and
in like
tabletop
90,
RPGs.
It was like 1992. That was my first real like convention.
92. Was Travis born?
Yep.
I was barely born. Yeah, I was like 1 year old.
I was like a junior in high school. A bunch of my friends. We went up to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and that was crazy.
I think Gen Con's been in Indianapolis for a while now.
Yeah, I actually, so I get invited every year by like people because I cover tabletop for IGN, and so every once in a while they'll be like, "Hey, like we're gonna be at Gen Con. Are you coming?" And I'm just like, no, sorry, tabletop doesn't perform well enough for me to justify a business trip out there. I'd love to go though. So to all my friends at Gen Con, I just want to say I'm your brother. I just finished the finale of my tabletop RPG last night. It was a banger, as it always is. I'm a legendary GM. Everybody knows this. But you know, wish I was there.
How did we get onto this?
I know.
Tabletop RPGs are awesome. We're talking about Baldur's Gate. It literally came from a tabletop RPG. Get out of here.
I met a Chekhov from Star Trek, like the original, like Walter Coing, walking down the street. Like, yeah, well, he my buddy. I remember this. I don't know, because I felt like an idiot. He's like, man, I love your work on Babylon 5. I'm like, are you just telling me that you're telling me Chekhov, the guy, like Chekhov, man? You know, you just said, you know, I love your work on Babylon 5.
His work on Babylon 5 is more impressive.
It is good. I'm not gonna say, but come on, man. It's
I did not know Anton Chekhov wrote Babylon 5. That's a deep reveal. I don't know about that.
Travis pretending he doesn't know who Chekhov is a good bit.
Oh, man.
I don't know who Chekhov is, but I somehow really know the famous Russian playwright Anton Chekhov. I know that one. That one I know super well.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right. I'm moving us on because we're all over the place.
Yeah.
There you go.
I'm here Baroka. Is that how you say it? Hoeg. Lords and Dragons Hoeg.
Love Lords and Dragons.
Motion to have Captain Leo Fraud Esquire make more frequent appearances.
You do want to make it French.
Okay. I like, yeah, that is nice. Travis is my favorite guest appearance to date. Please advise.
Damn.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Nice.
That's super nice. Yeah. So his Captain Leox Fraud. I went with a Star Wars sounding name. Leox. Yeah, I would totally do that. I don't know if there's a place for it, but you know, the great thing about Captain Fraud is he can show up in any place as a different character, and it totally makes sense because he's just grifting. That's how he does. He's just he could own a tavern down the road. He can, you know, maybe a casino. You know, he just that's how he lives. Just travels from town to town with his lovable schemes. Anytime your phone says scam likely on it, that's Leox is calling you, bro. He's got an exciting new opportunity for you.
So. Nice. Appreciate it. And finally,
Kalidi? Yeah, maybe. Just
showing
support for, Clyde. Right. Just showing support for a lovely podcast. Thank you, Kalidi Clyde.
Thank you very much, Kalidi Clyde. You double it up. Yeah. Appreciate you. Thank you very much for the support. Appreciate it. All right. Baldur's Gate 3 formally. I bought it in early access, started playing it only for the first time in 3 years on official release. Right now I have about 10 hours or so, right around there, 8 to 10 hours post early access, like since it launched. Really, really enjoying it. I think what I like the most about these types of games, and it's not just Baldur's Gate 3, of course, but as you were referring to, like Larian's games and games like this, is I don't know about you guys, it always has me questioning whether or not I've done the right thing. Every conversation, every time a decision is made and I leave something, or I pick up something or don't pick it up, or a die roll goes one way I didn't expect, like I'm like, oh shit. Like, should I reload my save? No, I just got to carry on. Like, because I'm tempted to constantly reload my save and try it. And I'm like, that kind of ruins it, right? It's like, you got to live with your decision.
That's the divinity problem.
My fiance and I have been playing this one together, and we have very different philosophies. She is a scum saver because that is a that's something that the dating sim community is really a big fan on, with reason, by the way, because in dating sims, if you go one route and you end up with one romance option, you have to play through the whole game again, and a lot of that is unskippable to get a different path. So I get why they do it, but there's a lot of people that come from that community who are like, oh yeah, I'll save every 5 minutes and do every path. I am not of that philosophy.
No, I think you just gotta live with it.
I live life the same way I live my real life, which is leave it all on the field, never look back. You did what you did. You roll. That's what makes it interesting, right?
Yeah, it makes it fun, right?
Yeah.
You rolled a 1, you got a critical failure. Now you work at IGN. Ride that train, baby. You know, that's where you got to go.
That's why I posted. I don't know if you guys saw my tweet. There's an option about karmic dice. Did you see that? So there's an option in there where by default it's turned on, where it tries to avoid the dice rolling in streaks, like either positive or negative, it says. And so I turned that off right away because I was like, I want RNG to be RNG. Like, you know, if I'm going to lose 5 rolls in a row, which I have, by the way, I'm going to lose 5 rolls in a row and we'll deal with it as it comes. So just a heads up that that's an option in there. But yeah, I had one yesterday where like I was doing something and I was trying to help this kid. I won't spoil anything, but I was trying to help this kid and poof, he got killed. And I'm like, all right, I guess that kid's dead now.
Is this the kid that got attacked by the harpies? Because there was one mission I saw Dee playing for 5 hours because she kept re-rolling and trying the combat encounter over and over.
Oh, I did the harpies one. I did the harpies one.
Yeah. So I was just like, oh yeah, the kid died. That's fine. Whatever. It's casualties of war. You know, we got to live. You got to move on, bro.
Yeah. So
that's the fun of a tabletop role playing game, right? Is you set up your circumstances as best you can, and then the dice do what the dice do.
Or if you are a Hoeg as a role player, you set up the circumstances as most terrible as you can, and then you see what happens.
We parachuted those hamsters down. All right.
All right. I need to really. I guess I need to watch that episode because things did not seem to be going well. Hoeg is
I've lost a lot of roles, like meaningful roles so far, and I don't know. I just love the rolling. I just love watching it unfold, and if it goes badly, it goes badly. But
sounds like you're a tabletop role player at heart. You just love the roles, man.
I've told you before. I adore tabletop role playing. I just don't have anyone to play them with, and I'm not the type of guy that's going to go to the local RPG store. There's there's stores around that do tabletop nights, and I'm not walking in there. Tabletop stores, like
they're called hobby shops.
Oh, I have a comic book store that I play D&D at, but I don't have an RPG store. When you say RPG store, I think of a guy with like selling swords and rings and amulets.
We have those too.
Well, I don't know. It's in California, they're called hobby shops, but there are hobby shops that sell like tabletops games like first, like that's their main thing in comic.
There's a huge one like
in both, but yeah, not usually.
No, there's a huge one that opened near me and Dan, like 20 minutes maybe away, but it's gigantic. It's like a warehouse, and they have a full bar and cafe, and they have a whole wall of tabletop RPGs that you can just play for free. You can just show up with your friends, take it off the shelf, set up, buy food, and play.
Yeah, but like I have one of those 5 minutes walking from my house, and I obviously am there a lot. So those places are super fun.
But I'm not gonna walk in there and be like, hey, I'm a random here. Can I play with you? Like, that's not gonna happen.
I don't do that either. I'm the guy who bought the obnoxious like $5,000 tabletop table that like opens up and has a vault and all that, and then I invite people to my house because I'm like, no, we're gonna do it my way. You do it my way, okay? I'm hardcore.
That's where that IGN money goes, folks.
Yeah, kind of,
But anyway, why is Dan? He's away from the show and he's commenting in the chat. What are we even doing?
He's probably on the toilet, bro.
What are we doing?
He's toilet tweeting right now.
Anyway, so let's ask the most important question. What characters have you all rolled? What's your main character?
I am a half-orc cleric.
Okay.
And I've always loved what Larian does here, which is has the set up characters with their own stories that you can pop into the brains of if you want to have your character, or they can just be the people that you meet in your party. That's the same thing they did with Original Sin.
Yep.
I think that's a great way to handle it.
Mm-hmm.
It is. Yeah. I actually chose a default character.
I almost did.
Did you
I
really?
love that vampire
Yeah.
rogue guy.
I chose the wizard, the wizard guy who is a seductress, because I was like, oh yeah, he's kind of like a scumbag wizard. I was like, that's what I want to play. Yeah, he's a wizard, but he doesn't have scruples. He's kind of like a little romancer kind of guy, you know, a little sly Han
Well, the
Solo.
fun part of
if
that
could
is you
shoot
get
lightning.
the options that are specific to the character. I always really like picking the Larian characters that have like a mental issue, that have whispers talking to them, or that can only understand things in different languages.
Makes you
we have a
feel
lot
at
of fun
home.
with those.
Yeah.
The voices.
I
tell
don't
me
know what
to do.
Dan chose. Obviously, I don't know if Dan's playing it. But yeah, I
don't
went
think
I went
so.
half orc as well, Hoeg. But I went half orc paladin. And then the interesting thing when you choose paladin is you choose from 3 oaths as well for your paladin. So I chose the oath of vengeance, of course. Protect the weak and kill the bad. So I've been kind of moving along with that.
Paladin players are the worst players in Dungeons and Dragons.
I'm shocked that Travis is going to try and take a one-up stance at this moment.
So boring, bro. Like, come on. Go on.
I like Pallies.
You're a scummy wizard talking about being boring. Gotcha.
Exactly.
Moving on.
Are interesting.
But yeah, I've really liked that. It's obviously very early. I saw that. I don't know if any sites actually have scored reviews out yet, because of how big the game is and the code's coming in rather late. But
I like 10 hours, and it's really early. I mean, it obviously is, but
I think IGN had theirs 2 weeks before the game came out, and then I think the day after it came out, we had a review in progress. But the woman who's reviewing it, Leanna, is legendary, so I have no doubt her review is going to be awesome. But you can, it's a long game, obviously, 2 weeks and still no end in sight, apparently.
Yeah, it's huge. So it's hard to say where it's going to sit in terms of my game of the year stance, But one thing,
did anybody have this on their game of the year? Was this really?
All 3 of you did.
Travis.
All 3 of you did. I'm the only one who doesn't.
You're an idiot.
Nice. Yeah, you're not looking good for you anymore.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a video game awards. Just because, we'll see.
That's true. That's why I don't have Diablo 4 on mine, because it's good doesn't mean it's going to be on the list.
I think Diablo
But they don't
4,
usually
if you're
ignore
talking
that.
about the video game awards, Diablo 4 has a lot more press than this game.
I agree, but that doesn't always mean, look, I think I know the people that are voting on this panel, and I think that they're the type to play an open world RPG choice-based game a lot more than they're likely to play an ARPG. That's just my personal feeling on it.
Yeah, we'll see.
I mean, it's gonna be interesting, but we'll see. How are they gonna do game of the year? Like, does it have to be 6 nominations? Are they gonna have like 15 nominations? Is it just gonna be crazy? I feel like they might, because it would be a snub to not include like 10 games this year. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know how
you might all win. Like, all of our options might be on the nomination.
The winner is you.
Yeah, real winner.
That would actually be kind of funny if they nominated like
crazy.
15 games and then just the winner is just the
it was
fans.
just a tie, like every guess was right. Because I don't think that'd be true. I think I screwed up with Dave the Diver, because at the time I was like, yeah, I think this will be like a pretty big game. But now in the grand scheme of things, I'm like, nobody's gonna remember Dave the Diver at the end of the year. There's too many games. It might be the token. It might be the token indie game though. We'll see.
That's the thing. I don't know if they're gonna have a token indie game.
Yeah.
There's too many other ones.
God, man, what a year. This is this is a crazy year.
So anyway, what do you guys think so far? Dan, you're not playing it yet, right?
No, I have not played it yet. Actually, when we were talking about, I played a Divinity Original Sin 2. That's what I ended up doing. I ended up re-downloading it. I played it before. It's awesome. It's it's an amazing game. So I'm just kind of prepping myself. But now I'm probably going to go.
Good option.
Yeah.
You don't want to pop into Baldur's Gate 3 or your computer's throwing up on it.
Yeah.
Original Sin 2
I'm
is
thinking about
sitting there.
I don't know how often my son uses his Steam Deck, and I might be running to grab it and hook it up to the TV and just play that. So we'll see. I'm going to ask him after this. I'll buy it. I'll just buy the game for him. I'll just be like, I'll buy the game for you. I'm going to play it.
I would love to see a bounce effect for Original Sin 2. Like if Baldur's Gate 3 gets me Original Sin 3, that would be awesome.
Oh man.
I mean, it might do that, but I don't think it's gonna have a bounce for Divinity Original Sin 2.
That would just be great.
It would be
saying things I would enjoy, Travis.
I mean, I'm with you, man. I like those games a whole lot. I played full co-op with both of those games with D when we first met. So those games are awesome.
Yeah.
But what jumps out to you about this game so far? Like anything that specific in the early hours?
Yeah, so I mean, I haven't played it even as much as you, Ains. My computer was really just absolutely throwing up on this, and I don't know exactly why, but I've been playing it on the Steam Deck, which actually works pretty well. Okay. And the controller support works a lot better than I thought it would, which is the fear that you have when you play one of these games, right? A lot of boxes, a lot of inventory. And what Larian has done is they've moved everything to radial menus, which I think is wise. It does mean things are a little bit more hidden from you, so you have to really dive in and figure out what your character is capable of. You get a bunch of characters at the start, so that takes a little bit of time. But I think it works really well, and I'm going to play it more. And I think what really works in all of their games, certainly this one, is this kind of openness, this feel that anything is possible, that you really are sitting at a tabletop RPG, and basically they've anticipated all the various things that you can try to do, and they're going to talk you through it with a narration and a dialogue choice or a button that does what you think it does or doesn't do what you think it does at all. And I think that kind of openness isn't seen in a lot of games. You get that kind of directed feel a lot more often now than certainly you used to. You know, like I'm thinking like the 80s and 90s where games were like really wide open, and Star Control and Starflight and Ultima and those kinds of things.
With very little instruction.
You just did what you felt was right, and you thought, and you saw what happened. And I think there's a lot of that in this. I like it. I don't know that I like it as much as Original Sin. It certainly has a lot more polish. It has a lot more money kind of on the screen than some of those games. But we'll see. I don't know where the story's going. It's just about being in the world right now.
Yeah, I'm sort of on the same page as Hoeg. Like, to me, it's obviously extremely competently made open world RPG that I'm super excited about. I think the decisions you make and the randomness and crazy things you can do are like the killer app of that game, which is great because that is also the same thing that people play tabletop RPGs for, including D&D, which I'm not a huge fan of D&D myself, but I enjoy that they nailed that. I do think the worst part of the game is the D&D IP for me. And that includes story and just kind of general generic ass world. But also, I don't know if anybody else is feeling this. Does your character move way too slow in this game? Am I crazy for thinking that?
Well, it's hard to walk around pretty slow. I had so many low frame rate experiences to start out with.
Right. Yeah, I know you're on the Steam Deck, so it's kind of brutal. But yeah,
you do move pretty slow.
Yeah, I'm playing on my souped up PC and it looks fantastic. And I'm like, well, I guess it's good. Maybe they made me move so slowly because they really want me to enjoy the walk, around their beautiful world they made. Yeah, for me, like already I'm starting to see some stuff where like, okay, probably not a 10 out of 10 game, but probably pretty easily a 9 out of 10 because they nailed a lot about this game and it's super cool. I love all the different features, and D and I playing together have completely different stories so far and are up to completely different stuff. And it's just been cool, man. I think this is a great game. And I just want to shout out that it's been so long since we've played a game like this. It's been like a while. Like, when was the last game of this quality of this genre? Was it Divinity?
It might be Original Sin 2.
Probably what you're talking about. Yeah, probably Original Sin 2.
3 was all right. I mean, I liked it. I mean, it's kind of the same deal. It's just a much smaller scope.
There's got to be some other game we're forgetting.
Pillars
about,
of Eternity. Right? When was that?
Pillars of Eternity.
I mean, like that's the same genre.
The ones that are closer to the gold box games, I don't think are quite as open feeling as the Larian games.
They're not. But I mean, you're asking for comparisons.
I can't even really think of any that are.
Pillars of Eternity is a good choice.
Yeah.
I mean,
but anyway,
maybe like the Outer Worlds. I mean, that's
kind of, yeah, kind of that. Yeah, I guess that's probably a good comparison. But yeah, I just feel like these used to be the genre. Like this this type of game used to be battle royales. You know what I mean? They used to be what battle royales are today. Like they were the hottest thing. Anytime a game like this came out, yeah, it was like, oh, this is the game of the year. Dragon Age Inquisition won game of the year, which is crazy to me now. I feel like a game like that would never win game of the year.
I don't think it should have won game of the year when it did. So
I don't think so either. Yeah, but to be fair, that was a super weak year for games. So whatever. That was like sure, you can give it to them. I don't really care. But yeah, I just think it's crazy that this sort of game feels so like retro and old school to a certain audience, to the point where I imagine a lot of people playing this game are people who just really like Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 and are looking at this and being like, oh, it reminds me of my youth. You know, there's like probably a lot of nostalgia linked to it.
It feels really different from the earlier gold box games to me. So I might be different there, but I didn't really vibe too well with those games back in the day. I like the characters and I like the storytelling, but like I never liked the tactical pause battling. I like this a lot better.
So like part of being somebody who writes for IGN is like people hit you up when they find a game, like people that are on the periphery of the gaming, and then they hear about a game that interests them, and then they hit you up and go, oh, have you heard of this game? And I'm like, yeah, of course I've heard of Baldur's Gate 3. It's one of the biggest games this year. But I'm hearing from like a lot of older gamers that are hitting me up and being like, hey, did you know they're making another Baldur's Gate? And I'm like, yeah, of course. It's out now. And they're like, oh, cool, I love those games. And I just hear from a lot of like people that really don't interact with games unless something from when they were a teenager comes up again. And so there's just a lot of like, I'm just hearing a lot of
what I was saying. Like the Baldur's Gate IP carries weight. That's part of what has driven the hype for this.
I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe they did it. They made a sequel to it.
Cool. And I think you're right, because you called out like things like Ultima, Hoeg, which goes way back, right? And I think looking back at the games I loved back in the 80s and 90s, a lot of them were Western RPGs that were very kind of in-depth or tactical. And more importantly, as I like the joke, right, they just let the player figure out what they're doing. It's like, here's our game. We've put a lot of mechanics and design, aspects into it. Figure it out. And I've stated many times on the show that I love that. That is part of what I love about gaming, is that exploration and lack of hand-holding. And I've been confused.
Practically assumes that you understand 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. Like,
yes, there's stuff where I'm trying to figure it out.
Yeah, I get what you're doing here, but this must be a lot harder for folks that haven't even seen the current edition of Dungeons and Dragons.
So, I don't play it at all. So, I'm obviously very familiar with kind of just, the concepts, right, I guess, of these things. But actually going in and reading what things do.
Yeah, you're right, because it does things like, oh, you have advantage, and then it gives you second die, and like if you're not familiar with 5e and like what that means, how powerful that is as an ability, it's sort of, you might just lose it. Like in games, the word advantage doesn't mean like.
Well, I was reading the various help boxes, and I was seeing how they were doing things, and like proficiency bonuses on top of the skill bonuses, and how the stats.
They let you see the math in like a weird way. Yeah.
But it's just not the way I'm used to thinking about it.
I also like how you'll walk around and you'll be doing like, the game's doing checks in real time, right? Like my guy has high on perception because I wanted to make him like a smooth talk his way out of situations type thing. And so got a lot of persuasion and perception. So I've discovered things in the environment that are like hidden, right? It's like it says perception check succeeded. And then suddenly there's a hidden hole over there that I can go down into.
Their map design is interesting for that, right? Like, I think one of the things, you jump into the game, and unlike the Divinity games, I don't think the tile set is as obvious. I don't think like where you can go or how the map works is as obvious. So you are exploring more, and they are doing those checks. And even when you're holding down the button to be shown the things you can interact with, it's not showing you everything.
Right.
And it gives you that kind of explorer's vibe that I think this year has been really good at, right? You say, it's been a tremendous year. I think exploration has really been at the forefront of a lot of that. Diablo 4 is enormous. Zelda is exploration-based. This is an exploration-based game. I think there's a lot for people to discover in these games. Starfield is coming. And Starfield, honestly, I say you're popping champagne if you have the Wizards of the Coast IP and you're running Dungeons and Dragons, because you know how much you contributed to the success of this game just with your IP. I think if you're a little bit more worried, it's in Bethesda and it's at Starfield, because people are going to be coming right off of this game and into yours.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's probably a lot more we can say. I know we'll talk about it in the future weeks once we have more time into this game to see where it lands. I've got other people I know, like Elu in the chat, saying, it's kind of replaced Diablo as his favorite game of the year so far, I believe. Keep me honest, Elu. But I'll have to see. I need a lot more time into it before I can get there. And I hope I get it because of the other game releases coming, right? This is a game that's obviously going to take a lot of time. And I hope I can dedicate enough time to get through it.
Well, and it needs big chunks of time, I would say. These kinds of games, at least for me, require I need to set aside a couple hours and then get really invested and engaged in that world in a way that maybe you wouldn't be doing the same way if you're playing Metal Gear Solid 5, as a for instance, right, from our earlier conversation, where you can jump in and do a 10-minute mission, or Remnant 2, where you pop in, you shoot some angels in the face, and you go and do something else.
Yeah, there's just an awful lot in this game. It's deep in that sense. So I'm loving it though. Plays great, looks great. It's cool to see the response to it. I love seeing, because these are the types of games I love, so I love seeing the responses. I think Travis called out earlier, it is now past like 730,000 concurrent. And keep in mind, that's Steam, right? That's not total player count. I'm actually playing it on GOG because that's where I got the early access originally. So it's on other PC launchers. It's coming to PS5 next month, and it's coming to Xbox before the end of the year. I also read that it sold over 2.5 million copies in early access. So this game is definitely blowing up. It's going to be one of the biggest of the year, I think, in terms of sales, which is crazy to say given the year that we're having. So gotta love it. Gotta love it. You think this drives some more interest in tabletop RPGs in general?
Definitely.
No.
It was a perfect.
I don't think so.
Perfect cut
Nah.
that I can take that clip out of.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
good stuff.
like undoubtedly there's a probably like plurality of people that are coming to this because they like tabletop RPGs and they're like, oh, it's a video game version of it for sure. But I think that if you've never played a tabletop RPG, but you like open world RPGs, and then you see that this one uses an in-game world set and a setting that already exists and that you could play it, I think it probably could drive it. But I think probably the most likely scenario is it reignites previous D&D players' interest in playing a tabletop RPG. I can see a lot of that happening, of like the nostalgia being like, oh yeah, I played D&D in high school. I wonder if people still play D&D. Oh, there's a team that meets up at the cafe down the road. Like, I'm going to go join them. So,
to me, this question is like, did Stranger Things really boost Dungeons and Dragons?
According to them, it did. According to them, it caused a whole bunch of people to go back and play Dungeons and Dragons. When I was at their HQ, we specifically asked about Stranger Things. We were like, hey, was that? They were like, yeah, dude, that blew up. Like now they're actually doing God, who's the villain in the most recent season? Vecna. They're bringing back Vecna because Stranger Things got so many people interested in D&D again that they're like, oh, let's bring back that villain and put him back in the game.
Vecna is rad.
Vecna is pretty rad. So yeah,
but I was reading the reviews of this game, and what's funny is mind flayers are a big part of the early parts of this game, and like one of the reviews was like the mind flayers from Stranger Things. I'm like, no,
no, bro. Yeah, you mean Stranger Things, the game where they repeatedly reference Dungeons and Dragons as the source of all of the stuff in the
yeah, it's not like Stranger Things has been trying to hide that that's what they do.
Yeah,
right. Exactly.
But yeah, I think I think this is yet another thing. Like, talking to people at Wizards of the Coast when I was there, they're basically just like, look, we're on a hot streak, possibly spurred on by COVID, because people had more time and they're at their homes and they're looking ways to engage with their friends without.
We wrote an article about that actually.
Yeah, there's like a lot of that happening, but then a few things have happened in a row. Stranger Things blew up. They finally had a good D&D movie. There's a good D&D movie that came out this week.
I really love Honor Among
Thieves. It was really good.
Which is really cool. And then now they're branching out and just like doing all these, world tours with certain things. They got a good video game. They got a good movie. I think there's kind of a growing interest in tabletop RPGs. There's something retro about it and analog that I think people really are drawn to. And, as a tabletop hipster, I'm sort of like rolling my eyes at people playing D&D because I'm like, oh, it's like the worst RPG. You don't even know. But I'm generally a big fan of D&D because I think it gets so many people through the door. and to give tabletop RPGs a try. And then I convince them to play different ones.
To me, like I'm not playing modules from basically anything. I'm just playing a system. So I don't mind D&D any more than I used to play BattleTech when I was in high school. That's what I played.
Yeah, no, I think the system
BattleTech,
to me the system's the worst part. The 5e rule set I think is atrocious, but that's because I'm going for something else. Like a lot of people really like they need a board game. They like something to Jenga, right? And to me, tabletop RPGs are about the shared storytelling, and I don't think 5e rules help you at all. In fact, they hinder your ability to like tell good stories. And some rule sets are really good at like the rules are all about helping to tell the story and improving the narrative. And
well, you can see how much like Lawyers and Dragons ignores the tactical battle stuff.
Exactly. And you kind of have to do that if you play D&D with the goal of like storytelling. Like 5e doesn't help you at all, and that's my problem with it, because there's rule sets out there that really do, and it makes I think the game more interesting. But again, like the thing I love about D&D is it gets so many people through the door, and then I convert them, and so I love D&D's role, but for me it's it's a gateway drug. I think
I like the chat. Yes, I played BattleTech. I loved BattleTech back in the day. My favorite thing we ever did with BattleTech is my game master told the story of Michael Crichton's Sphere. If you're not familiar with the story Sphere, in the world of BattleTech, and it was wonderful. This alien circle that grants wishes, and it's one of my fondest memories from back in high school. So yeah, play tabletop RPGs. They're awesome. Travis has almost convinced me that this will matter for tabletop RPGs. So I'm going to grant him the win.
I think it will. And as somebody who's got 3 bookshelves full of tabletop RPGs, like I'm very happy to see that hobby growing. And I think it has influenced video games so much over the years. Like I don't think the video game landscape would be the same that it is even remotely if there weren't a whole bunch of tabletop RPG nerds playing and making a lot of these games. Right. And Larian Studio is for sure one of those developers that probably wouldn't exist without the tabletop legacy.
It's like when people don't realize that that's where Cyberpunk came from. It's like Cyberpunk was not a new
Cyberpunk
IP.
Was a tabletop RPG. And what's funny is after the game came out, they released a new edition of Cyberpunk called Cyberpunk Red, the tabletop, and it is the 2077 world, because the Cyberpunk RPG world is very different from the game, but then people like the game so much they were like, oh, we should put the game version of Cyberpunk in an RPG book, and that did really well from what I understand. I mean, I own it, but
I still just resent how much of the cyber they took out to make that
game. Really did. I mean, it's so funny to like, oh, so you like the game? All right, well, there's this version of it that's in that world, but you could go to the original Cyberpunk world, which is a completely different idea and way more interesting. And then, again, gateway drugs, man. Like people play 2077 and then you get them to play the real Cyberpunk RPG and they're like, oh, damn, am I a nerd now? And you're like, yes, I tricked you.
I don't mind Dungeons and Dragons as much as you do, Travis. But yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of fun to be had. And I think Larian with this game has come the closest to building a computer game that can handle what the tabletop experience is, even more than the 90s gold box games. So if people play this and say, man, I wish I could do that in my living room, then go for it. There's books at your local bookstore right now that'll let you do that.
By the way, Chris Jetzer, I haven't played it, but he mentioned, we were asking about what games similar to this. He said Pathfinder. I have not played Pathfinder.
Wrath. So I actually played that one. Pathfinder: Wrath of the Righteous was the most recent one, and before that they did there's another Pathfinder campaign. Kingmaker, thank you. Which are both, just so you know, real campaigns you can buy at physical books and play them, and they recreated them in a video game. And so they basically just opened up the campaign book and they were like, let's make a game about this. And so those are super interesting games. I do think that they are almost in a different category of quality. Like they're not really the same. You're not going to play this and play the Pathfinder games and draw comparisons to like Mass Effect and Dragon Age Origins in the same way that you will when you play Baldur's Gate 3. But I do like those games, and I think that they serve a super interesting niche space for like tabletop diehards who just want to.
Yeah, it's a different system. So I mean, it's one you have to learn. It is not really. It doesn't really have the DNA of Dungeons and Dragons like so many other video game systems do. I mean, the advantage you have with Dungeons and Dragons, even 5th edition, is that it's mostly going to match up with a lot of your expectations from video games that you played, whether it's Final Fantasy or Dragon Warrior or whatever. Pathfinder is kind of deliberately designed to be something different. So
Well-
I don't love that system.
Well, Pathfinder, it does have the DNA of D&D because it literally comes from D&D 3.5.
Yeah,
It's like
I
the
understand
chunkiest
that they
version,
built it
you know?
off of Dungeons and Dragons. I'm saying it doesn't feel like Dungeons and Dragons to me.
Oh yeah, it certainly doesn't. I think that some of that is intentional. Yeah, I mean, I'm not thrilled about any RPG that is like, hey, here's a generic fantasy universe and it's really chunky rule system that doesn't lend itself to storytelling at all. But you know, to me, Pathfinder and D&D are like two flavors of the same overused kind of genre. But hey, look, again, Gateway Drugs, I'll play both of them. I won't GM them for you, but I'll join your group. Yeah, I like them.
Travis, we'll not GM your tabletop Dungeons and Dragons.
I'll GM other RPGs, but you know, come to me when you want to play. You know, I've got Hoodoo Blues, I've got Godlike, it's a great one. Fate's Worse Than Death, Goated. Nobody's even heard of that game. Somebody said Shadowrun. I love that.
Just
RPG.
making up stuff.
Shadowrun's a classic.
I'm not. I swear to God, these are real RPGs. I like, dude. Okay. So, I don't think I'm a hipster in most walks of life. Like you guys joke about that. I'm really not. But when it comes
Just
to tabletop
accept
RPGs,
You are.
when it comes to tabletop RPGs, I am a hipster. I'm a
You are a
super,
hipster.
like,
Just
snob
accept it. Be
about this
proud.
stuff, so.
Be a proud hipster.
Yeah.
The truth is, I'm looking around my office here. I have a ton of board games. I don't really have a lot of TTRPGs.
Yeah, it's because it requires a group, right? You have to get like a, you know, if you have a family, you have to choose family or tabletop group. That's sort of the.
You sound like my old law firm partners.
Right? Yeah, exactly. So yeah, Blades in the Dark. Again, that one's not my favorite, but I do like it a fair bit more than D&D. Actually prefer some of the other games that are in that same system, like Court of Blades, I think is a really good one, which is more of like a kind of like a high aristocracy betrayal and heists, but it's got the same vibe. But yeah, I do like Blades in the Dark. GURPS is cool. Don't sleep on GURPS. I mean, the worlds of GURPS are a little, you know, Cthulhu's kind of, you know, not super exciting. Your character is going to go insane and die or turn into a monster or something. But
That's what the
GURPS is
Arkham
cool.
games are for.
Exactly. Yeah. World of Darkness is also great. Yeah. There's just a lot of good stuff.
We also got a super chat from Darth Max saying, "Remember Eye of the Beholder."
The PC game?
I'd have to look it up. It's ringing a bell, but yeah.
Do they have that on the Game Boy?
Actually,
I'm not joking. I think it sounds super familiar.
Eye of the Beholder got re-released on something. Why do I feel like I saw it on my Xbox or Steam UI recently? But yeah, it's an old game.
Wow.
Tabletop
Going back,
RPGs
yeah.
rule.
1991, Eye of the Beholder. All right.
Yeah. Maybe I was wrong.
Okay.
Thank
Oh,
you,
Legend
Darth
of
Mac.
Five
Appreciate the
Rings
super
too.
chat.
Everybody should play that if they have a tabletop RPG. I really like that one. The Star Wars RPG is also really good, Hoeg, for the first time. The Fantasy Flight Star Wars RPG is actually a good Star Wars RPG. So.
I played that. I played like the old like.
To the Fantasy
RPG.
Flight
Did
TTRPGs,
you play the-
Are they a little less Ameritrash than their board game Legacy?
They are, yeah. Actually, they're so not Ameritrash that part of Fantasy Flight got canned, and they ended up giving the role playing to a different studio that I don't have a ton of confidence in, because the first thing they did was release a 5e version of Legend of Five Rings that I would describe as an abomination. But they
You have a lot of thoughts.
I really
like
do,
it.
yeah. I'm a tabletop nerd, bro. I'm just a loser when it comes to
It's called a hipster,
cool.
but
Yeah.
anyway,
I will admit I am a hipster when it comes to tabletop. I just am. I own it.
nothing wrong with that.
I have a quick question, like a little bit off topic. Hoeg, when you played BattleTech, I played BattleTech. Did you ever go and see and play the actual BattleTech pod game where you could go to like it was like a Dave or Buster's or something like that, where they had these gigantic pods, like strings of them, and you would
That's
sit
too rich
in
for me, Dan.
Oh, it wasn't that expensive. It was just I didn't know they existed at the time when I actually found them. They were just, it was like it's an entire pot. You just walk it, you sit down. It's got all the controls. Like every little button does something. I mean, it's really super in depth, and I don't know why that just kind of popped in my head. So much fun. I spent probably a lot of money and too much time sitting in those pods, because they were probably like $5 to $10 every round or whatever it was. You played against a bunch of other people.
No,
That
but
was
that
back in
age
the
I had
90s?
absolutely nothing. I did, however, get the fancy Xbox game with the multiple levers and buttons that I can't
Steel
remember the name of.
Battalion.
Steel
Oh, Steel
Battalion.
Battalion, yeah.
Oh,
That was like one of my first purchases when I had a law firm.
You still have it?
That's all.
Bro, my
That's worth a lot of
God,
money.
dude, I would pay a lot of money for that. You know how I that came out when I was like in middle school, maybe even younger, and I remember just seeing it and being like, dude, I would literally kill everyone in my family if I thought I could get this.
It sat on the top shelf of our electronics boutique for a couple of years, and then I finally got a law firm job, and I was like, "Give me that."
I wanted it so bad, dude. There's a glass button, or you have to open up the glass. Oh man, dude,
It's plastic, but yes,
I wanted it. I wanted it. Still want it.
Yeah, it goes for.
Unfortunately, the game isn't as impressive as the controller.
Yeah, the controller was always a really cool thing. It goes for about $500 or so.
What?
So, yeah, sure does.
It's crazy.
Because they didn't make millions of them. You know what I mean? It's pretty sought after. It was very unique. So.
Oh, here I have a tabletop RPG. One last one to recommend to Dan specifically. Dan, I recommend you play.
Remember this episode? I didn't do this. This is his fault.
Dan, I recommend you play a tabletop RPG called Thirsty Sword Lesbians. That's all. Let's move on.
All right, let's do it. I'm gonna go to my local RPG center. And,
honestly, if you go to your local RPG center, I guarantee you they will have Thirsty Sword Lesbians. They might even have the expansion to it, Advanced Thirsty Sword Lesbians. You never know.
Don't get the basic one. Go advanced. Come on.
Yeah.
Well, you have to get both. It's an add-on.
Naming conventions go. That wasn't really.
Sorry, Ames. You got a
great fun.
Do
Yeah.
No, that one was worth it. That one was worth it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So
great.
All right. We'll finally move on. Play Baldur's Gate 3. It's really good.
Yes,
give it a shot.
This is the world you get involved in when you buy Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah, this is what happens.
I think we
so
just scared people away from Baldur's Gate 3 pretty hard. Steam charts are plummeting right now somewhere.
But anyway, we're moving to a completely different topic, which is around new hardware. So we've got pretty good intel, if you will. Obviously nothing formal right now from any of the companies directly, but as I would gauge kind of insider information and rumors and all this stuff, I would say it's pretty solid. Let's start with the Switch 2. So follow-up Switch. Obviously, we don't know if it's a Switch 2 or not, or a new name. But it's looking like the hardware that was detailed last year that was then delayed, apparently, is going to come out next fall from Nintendo. Follow-up to the Switch. The rumors as they stand today, don't know how true these are, is that it'll still play the little cartridges like the Switch does. It will have an LCD screen, not an OLED screen, which is kind of weird. Backwards compatibility is not defined as of yet. But I don't know about you guys, but it is Nintendo. So let me preface this statement that it is Nintendo and they don't listen to anyone and they do whatever the hell they want to do. But I have to imagine that given the Switch's success and continued success and the library that the Switch has from a first-party perspective that has brought over a lot of prior Nintendo games as solid ports, that they will allow this will be like a follow-up to the Switch. It is supposedly still portable, but that it'll be kind of like the Super Switch that we were all helping, the next-gen Switch. So I don't know what you guys think about this, how interested you are in it. I know, obviously, Hoeg, in your household, the Switch plays pretty big from what I understand.
Oh, yeah, we play a lot of Switch. And I should have warned people when I bought my second Switch after waiting as long as I could that was going to be the moment when Nintendo would finally agree to make a new Switch. So that is on its way. I have no doubt there, and I'm very interested in it. Now, I would say the business analyst kind of view of this is, of course, it's going to be backward compatible. It's a huge audience, etc. But the hope has to be that they didn't learn the opposite lesson, right? They sold you Wii U games again for 6 years.
Yep.
So the one concern you have is that there's a business room somewhere where they say, well, let's sell them the games again for another 6 years. Yeah. But I do think a Super Switch that is backward compatible with more hardware power under the hood is the most likely thing to happen. And if that happens, I will be thrilled. The Hoeg House will have a party and we'll get a new Switch.
Nice. I don't know where I sit. I'm at the point where I play my Switch so rarely that I don't know. I say that now, I'm going to buy the damn thing, but regardless, like I don't know how much use it would get, but I am hopeful in the same vein as you, Hoeg. I hope that they continue with the Switch. I hope that the cartridges, the physical copies that I own today still work. I hope that it's fully backwards compatible, and I hope that it obviously, presents a much larger upgrade in terms of hardware than anything else. Because the hardware in the Switch is just ancient at this point.
There's like a half dozen games that I would play or I would try again that I've purchased that just the performance is just completely unwelcome. On the
Yeah, I mean
current
the chipset's based on mobile mobile hardware or laptop hardware from 2010. I mean, it's 2023. We're talking 2024. Like, it's time to move on. So, what do you guys think, Travis? Dan, you all over this?
I'm not. I have no desire. The last game I played was Zelda, the new one, and I honestly I haven't picked it up since launch.
I mean, that's an all right game.
I mean, it's great.
And the problem wasn't the hardware. I don't know how necessary this is for the
type
of game.
But that'd be the only game. Like, I'm not going to buy an entire system to play one game. That's just not me. I didn't have. Like
you already bought the system, and
you'll be buying the new Switch to play all the new Nintendo games, right? Like, Nintendo is still one of the best software developers on earth, so that's why you would buy the new Switch.
But I don't play those games generally.
That's fine.
So I mean, I didn't buy a PlayStation 3 at all, and I didn't get the 4 until the Pro came out. So because there wasn't. Here's the thing.
You didn't play Uncharted? You didn't play any of the Uncharted games?
I didn't play any of that stuff before.
God damn.
I played them eventually, but I played them on the PS4
Sony
Pro.
keeps selling them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing was, it was. I bought it. The only thing I was missing on PlayStation was always MLB, right? It was always that. God, I had to have MLB because I really love baseball games, and eventually it got to the point where Horizon. And there was a couple other ones that I really wanted to try out, and so I ended up picking one up, and fantastic, got my enjoyment out of it. But I don't generally play a lot of Nintendo games, and even I had an Xbox and a 360 and everything else. That's where my biggest library is, and I've got but I'm not a Gears fan. I'm not a Halo fan, and Forza is for me. Okay, yeah, I like it. It's a good game, but I'm not like a diehard by any means. But that just has always been my system. When I got the Switch, I played a few games here and there. I played through Zelda, and then a little bit of Mario here and there. Luigi's Mansion, I really enjoyed. It's so few and far between that I don't have the time as much anymore to invest in those games. Because I think that for me, there's other games I'd rather play. Even going back and like replaying another game, rather than jumping into a whole new system. And I'm not convinced that Nintendo is going to release something that's backwards compatible, not for 1 second. I mean, they could.
I would not be convinced. Do not bet the house.
No.
Well,
no.
I mean, they've done it in the past. To be fair. We saw the Wii U had like the Switch built into, or sorry, the Wii built into it and stuff like that. So they've done it before. And I also think their ecosystem is better equipped. Well, if we're splitting hairs, the Wii also supported GameCube discs. You could play GameCube games on that, right? You could put the small disc in there. So they've done.
All I said was don't bet on it.
Yeah,
I'm not
here's the thing. I think that you would have a better odds of betting on it now than you ever had, because also their ecosystem is finally equipped to support something like that, because they have online apps that contain all of their virtual hardware, and you can get your software libraries in there. And so I think it would be pretty easy to just put those apps and any purchases you've made in them on,
carry it over.
Yeah, carry it over, even if it were a different system. And I'm not convinced it will be. I mean, Nintendo is all about bold moves and throwing big successes out the window and trying something new. But I don't know if they will be willing to move on to something that isn't the Switch. I think they've been building the Switch for a long time, whether it was the DS or the 3DS or that sort of thing. This whole mobile console hybrid is it's the most Nintendo thing they've ever done.
But what do they have to gain from keeping it backwards compatible? Aside, I mean, Nintendo fans, it doesn't matter.
Keep their
what
audience.
You put out there. I mean, you're not going to lose your audience.
You're probably not going to lose your audience.
Ever. They could do
there is probably a tipping point where bad consumer practices are enough to damage your brand. And
wait a minute. Nintendo is probably in the best position to know how easy it is to lose their audience from the Wii to the Wii U.
Yep. And yeah, I would say Xbox is probably a little bit more equipped because they lose their audience every time they do anything. But and they never had an audience to begin with. Yeah, but I do think I do think like Nintendo values their brand a whole lot, and they don't always do consumer friendly things, but I think often it's because of a lack of understanding of certain things like how the cloud works and stuff like that. But I think they're getting better at that. And I think their next system will be backwards compatible. I don't know if we need it, to be honest. I know that people complain about the way Switch games work, but I have not seen Nintendo try to make a game that I thought, oh wow, this really, the hardware seems to be holding it back. Like,
Link's Awakening.
Well, yeah, I'm talking about
and third-party games like Hogwarts Legacy.
The Pokemon games are actually a very good example.
Hogwarts Legacy had to be delayed almost a whole year so they can try to get it to work on that hardware.
But that wasn't a Nintendo-made game, and I don't know how much they care about.
No, that's why I said third-party.
Yeah, I don't know.
Legacy is one of the best-selling games of the year. I mean,
I don't know how much Nintendo cares about third-party. To be honest, if they cared about third-party, they would be not doing the strategy.
If they cared about third-party, their revenue would be higher. I know.
I mean, they're beating the console you play without third-party.
Console
by a lot.
What's the console I play?
Xbox.
I own everything.
You're an Xbox.
The Xbox's revenue is higher than Nintendo, so at least learn what you're talking about before.
No, Xbox is in last place in the console.
They are not in last place in revenue. I promise you, they're not.
Well, their own employees said that they're in last place in the console space pretty recently.
They don't know what they're talking about. So I could pull up the chart right now if you want me to. It's up to you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get into this because it's a pointless.
There's nothing to get into. Nintendo is behind Xbox and PlayStation in annual revenue. Period.
Okay, Ains.
Why? I don't know why you're arguing me on this.
I'm not arguing with you. I said, okay, Ains. Let's move on.
What is happening?
I don't know. I feel like we just got a view on a Travis fiance fight there.
That's how that works.
No, it's just, some arguments aren't worth having.
But that's what I'm saying. You made a statement. No, you made a statement. It was wrong. I told you it was wrong, and then you debated me on it, and I told you, no, you're wrong.
Well, I mean, you can look at the numbers and a lot of this is why I didn't want to get into it. But
this
you can
is
look
publicly held info. You can't lie about your revenue.
Jesus, man. Are you going to let me finish a sentence or are you going to interrupt
Go ahead.
every time I try to talk? There's a lot of different ways to look at the console market, and revenue is not the end all be all of what makes you a console leader. And that's my point, is that you can look at revenue, but a lot of that revenue is gained from third party that you're getting 30% of. The fact that Nintendo is performing better in a ton of different categories, including console sales, without having third party, speaks to the health of their organization. And so that's my point, is that
I agree with all that, but that's not what you said.
I never said revenue. I said they're beating them, and then you assumed that meant revenue. So you have a really myopic view of what means succeeding. So that's the I said they're beating them, and I do think that Nintendo's beating Xbox. I think that they have
beating everybody.
Yeah, I think
Nintendo is categorically beating. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think Nintendo's walloping them in a lot of different areas, but the fact that they're making more revenue, Xbox needs third party to succeed as a platform. And
agree.
Nintendo doesn't, and I think that that's a huge strength. If you can control your own destiny, Nintendo's the only player that can do that. And so that's my point, is like they've been succeeding by following their strategy and their dreams, and I don't know if any of their dreams need a more powerful console to exist, with the exception of Pokemon, which was a really good call out, Hoeg. But my situation with Pokemon is I think Game Freak is just bad at developing software, and none of their games have run well on any platform. So I don't even know if that's a Switch problem or if that's that developer problem. So, if they show me a vision for a game that feels really Nintendo and they clearly want to make it and it can't exist on the Switch, I will acquiesce. But I feel like a lot of people are trying to envision this version of the Switch that isn't really what the Switch was ever supposed to be about. I don't think it's going to be a Rogue Ally. I don't think it's going to be a Steam Deck. And I think that them chasing that would be the most un-Nintendo-like thing they could possibly do. Nintendo gunning Nintendo. They're going to do their own thing, and they've been super successful with it. And so I just don't know how much we need it.
And
I get it, and I know that people
need it.
Yeah, I know that people want that. I just don't know if people probably wanted more juice during the Wii era too, and they said no, and they did something completely different, and that crushed it. It was like,
well, I can guarantee that the one thing Nintendo is going to try not to do is the Wii U as a successor to the Wii.
Yeah,
well, the Wii U was clearly their middle step trying to get to the Switch, right? It's where they were trying to head the whole way, and the Switch kind of perfected what they were trying to do there, I think. But no, you're right. I think that you're absolutely right about that, Travis, in the sense of we know, especially considering we talk about this all the time and look at this stuff, Nintendo doesn't need anything in terms of what you're talking about with third party. They dominate sales right now. They dominate a whole bunch of metrics, as you said. But if you're Nintendo, right, are you content with that always being the case? Maybe. But why would you not want to continue that for Nintendo while further supporting third parties? Because we have seen third parties struggle to put their games on the Switch, and some third parties won't even approach putting their games on the Switch.
Or they got to be streamed, right?
Such a silly idea
sometimes. To the cloud.
Yeah,
to the cloud.
Yeah, and what's weird is that wasn't always the case. Do you guys remember, like in the GameCube days, like most games also came to the Nintendo console? Like third party was pretty strong
because
in those
the GameCube had the IBM chipset that was comparable to PS2 and Xbox.
But I almost think that Nintendo is getting a type of third-party support that no other platform gets, because Nintendo gets a lot of third-party games. They're just not from like Ubisoft and EA and the big budget stuff. They're like the places that the games that used to be on Vita. Like they get all those games. They get all the dating sims. They get a lot of visual novels. They get like Japanese games you would never find on the PS5. You'd never find on Xbox. And I feel like
they kept up their DS library.
Yeah, they kept their DS library, and I think they took the Vita library. I think all those games now just are Switch games, right? And so it's almost like they're succeeding at third party with a market of third party that isn't really palatable on the major consoles. And it is on PC.
I'd also argue slightly differently. I think Ubisoft's an interesting call out because they obviously have a close relationship with Ubisoft.
That's true, yeah.
The Mario and Rabbids games are essentially specialty second party type games made only for you by a big publisher. So, I mean, they do have that position as well. But I have to believe...
I was thinking of Assassin's Creed and, Watch Dogs and, those sorts of games. But, yeah.
Right. No, of course. But, yeah, I mean, I think that a Super Switch that can still play your library of games that you picked up for the last 6 years, which is a lot of people that didn't have a Wii U, is useful to keeping the momentum and direction of your brand. Is Nintendo going to go for that? I don't know. I agree that it's not necessary. So that's why I think it's unclear as to whether you'd win that bet. But I think certainly if you were just playing the what's the most normal thing that they could do, that backwards compatibility is what you'd expect from what amounts to the console market leader right now.
But you have to ask, what was the most Nintendo thing to do?
The most Nintendo thing to do would be to make a cardboard version of the Switch. Right. And have it only available to you through a cell phone that you put in and accesses the QR code.
Yeah,
that's it.
My thought was like maybe they'll keep the Switch or upgrade the hardware in some way, but then there will be like a peripheral that adds like Wii motion functionality, because that is one of the disappointing things is the Joy-Con doesn't really showcase any special hardware, and I thought it was going to, but everybody wants to Switch kind of proved that they're sort of over the motion gimmicks right now with the Joy-Con, which is interesting.
Switch Sports is really, really good.
Yeah, I mean, I know you've said that. I didn't think so, but it also, to me, it's like they kind of stopped playing into the gimmick of motion controls. I feel like they don't really do it as much, and I would wonder if they would do something like ARG, like they did with the Mario Kart physical racetrack game. If like they would ever make that front and center on their console, I could see them doing that. I could see them being like, hey guys, here's another Switch game, but also, or another version of Switch, but also, it either comes bundled with, or there's an optional add-on where we add like an ARG component and we're going to make more games like that. I could see them doing something weird like that.
You didn't like Switch Sports? We have to go back to this.
Yeah, is that the one where there was like a fencing game? I think I played that with some people and I was sort of just like, yeah, this seems like a worse version of Wii Sports.
I need a Super Sluggers. That's what I need.
I don't know. The games just didn't really jive with me. Like I kind of felt like there was like a fencing one, a tennis one. The tennis one I felt like was just really basic, and I don't know. It didn't feel like it had the heart to me. But granted, I played like 2 hours.
Nintendo's strongest kind of live service multiplayer online game direction that I had seen. The way they handled all the sports and the way they handled their battle pass. No, I think Splatoon is even a little bit weaker in terms of the overall infrastructure. Sports kind of drives you to play for hours at a time, just getting the little things in the pass and playing different versions of essentially survival bowling and tennis. I think that's a stronger.
Interesting.
I think that's a stronger result than Splatoon. Splatoon
I
is
guess
a better game.
Yeah, I didn't like review Switch Sports, so my experience with it was I played like 2 hours. I played each game like a couple times, and I was just like, all right, this doesn't really do anything, and I kind of moved on. But yeah, I didn't really dive too deep into that one. But that was my initial kind of reaction was, it's all right. Yeah.
Well, I guess we'll see what they do.
Yeah.
It sounds like most of the panel wants it, or half. It's like Ains and Hoeg are on team. Give me the Switch Pro, and Dan and I are less enthusiastic.
Oh, I mean, it's absent some real mistakes in the way it's designed. It's an easy buy for me.
For me too. I just don't know if we need it. Yeah, I'll buy it.
I'm not really with you. I want it, but I don't know if I'll even buy it. So I'm not the best determinator, I guess.
God, you really don't play a lot of Nintendo, or I guess do you play them, or you just don't play them? Okay. Yeah.
No, I don't. And
some of them are good. Right? Like Sparks of Hope seems like a game you'd like. Like, aren't you into those?
Dude, I bought Sparks of Hope like a month ago. Finally, right? I still haven't played it.
Why?
Sparks of Hope is really strong.
It's such a good game. But you can't say time because you play Halo Infinite every week for hours, and it's just like you could be using that for some other stuff.
Yeah, but why would I play Sparks of Hope over Halo? But I mean, seriously, we all have those comfort games, right? Totally. Plus Halo. All jokes aside, Halo is my hang out with my friends game too, right? We all get online and play multiplayer in various ways.
It's true that sometimes when you're on a kick, and I'm sure you understand this more than Dan and Hoeg, Ains, is sometimes when you get on a kick of I'm playing an online game, that consumes a lot of your game time because of the social pressure. Even if you log on to another game, they'll see you're online and they'll send you a party invite and be like, come on, hop on this other game with me. And then you're like, God damn it, I'm going to get pulled out.
That's why I show offline almost a lot now. But
which is why it took me so long to beat Ghost Trick, which, by the way, Hoeg, I finally beat it 2 nights ago. And my God, what a great game. They've done it again. Or I guess they did it previously. But, they've done it again for me.
It's great.
Great game. I also got every achievement in that game, kind of on accident, which is kind of cool.
I think you have gotten to the end of the game.
No, they have missable ones, but I just looked through them and I was like, oh yeah, I did all this stuff. That's weird. But yeah, I haven't gotten all the achievements in a game in a long time because I rarely have time to go for the completionist route. But it's cool. Good game.
But yeah, I think we've joked about that, right? With live service games, especially multiplayer. I play every week. I play Rocket League, Halo, Apex. I play with Bert. Honestly, Dan, me and Bert play Apex probably 3 or 4 times a week. But those games, those are my hangout games. That's hanging out with friends, right? So that just between that and then obviously career and family life and then games I have to cover, there's not a lot of time for other games. Because
gaming for you is more social. Dan and Hoeg, I think they play video games to not talk to people. They're just I just want to sit here and escape.
Granted.
Yeah, I think I walk in both of those worlds. I think naturally when I go through spurts where I want to be online and talk to people, but there's a lot of times where I'm just appear offline. I don't want to mess with anybody. And some platforms are really good at doing that, and that's why I appreciate Nintendo so much. It is a great platform if you want nobody to be able to bother you, because Nintendo doesn't have the infrastructure to support it because their internet is a potato. So it's just
I've been offline or showing offline for probably 6 to 7 years now. So
you probably have friends who think you're dead.
No, there is. I'm not even. You're exactly right. You remember Greg Ains, the guy I used to play with? He's the worst player of any game ever possible. Kind of a dumb, but he's
coming from you. You're get good, Greg.
No, he's bad. So bad. Absurdly bad.
Wait, I think I know this guy. Did he play Cuphead tutorial?
No.
Greg is taking strays.
No. It's bad. Unless it's Forza. If it's a Forza game, he is incredible at racing games. Unbelievably good. Everything else, it's like he's walking to a wall constantly, and that's literally. Anyway,
that's just when I fall asleep.
I pop up. I had a message from him on Xbox, and he literally said, "Dude, are you still alive?" And I saw it. It said 267 days ago or whatever, was when he sent the message.
Just respond back, no.
No, I'm good. I'm good.
I regret to inform you that Dan is no longer with us.
This is Dan's wife. Sorry to let you know.
He's done. He ate too many Pop-Tarts with butter on them.
Yeah, with butter, no doubt. Yeah, that's.
I think
that's
one is too many Pop-Tarts with butter on them. I think that's,
Don't knock it till you try it, dude. Don't knock it till you try it.
that's
telling
I
you.
mean,
Oh man.
yeah,
Delish.
it only works with some things, Dan. You know,
I
Butter.
haven't tried it.
You can
But
put butter
not
on
until you
anything.
try it. Well, I don't know.
Anything.
This is more the
Anything. All right.
All right. So Switch 2 2024 holiday. We'll see what comes out of that. Also, very, very credible, what I would call credible kind of sources and rumors on a PS5 Pro. So holiday
Please don't.
2024.
Please don't.
I'm waiting to hear what you guys say about this, but PS5 Pro, there's no details as of right now. Obviously, if we're going by the PS4 Pro, etc., we can kind of know what to expect, which is a mid-gen refresh with just more power.
So it'll barely run 4K. It'll
Yeah.
run like up-res 4K. It'll be
I
like
resent
worse.
the very concept.
Me too.
Wow, you guys
And
are real cold on this. I didn't know
And
it was gonna be this bad.
if I said no to the Switch Pro, what makes you think I'm gonna say yes to PS5 Pro? That's like the most unnecessary console I've ever heard. Please
I don't
no.
really feel like Sony has justified my purchase in 2020
Hell
yet.
no.
So
I think funny enough, I think a lot of
Damn.
people.
I mean,
He's
I think
right,
a lot
though.
of people have
Games.
felt that way because
For
I've seen
both of
that.
these
I've seen that
consoles.
sentiment from a lot of
I hate
people.
it. Well, you don't. I hate the marketing, right? We've talked about this before. The marketing sucks. It's so over the top. You put 8K, 120 frames per second, whatever, on your box, and I haven't. The one game that can do that, The Tourist, looks like a game you could have played on the Nintendo 64.
the Taurus
Right?
is great.
hey,
Hey,
I
I'm
do
not saying
play
it's a bad
it.
game.
Hey,
Again,
Gears
but
of
I'm
War
saying
5.
there's
Gears of
not.
War 5 does 120 FPS.
Oh, so does
Yep, so does Halo.
Spider-Man technically.
My TV doesn't. So
There
Right.
you go. Honestly, that's the problem. Most people I see complaining about 4K. I'm like, do you have a 4K
I don't even
television?
care
And
about
they're like,
4K.
no. And I'm like, oh my
doesn't
God,
have
dude, what are you
4K
talking
television?
about? Why are you buying a Series X? I don't get it.
Well, I
Now,
mean,
keep in mind when this releases, it'll be that's what Radic was just saying. When this releases, if rumors are true, it'll be 4 years post launch.
and have they stopped making their games PlayStation 4 compatible yet? I don't think so.
I didn't expect this level of aggressiveness.
But
for
look,
this
that's a
dude.
good point. That's a good point. Why are they making a PS5 Pro if all of their games can also be played on the PS4? Because
the Spider-Man PS4 also? The Spider-Man 2?
I don't think
Spider-Man 2 is
No.
PS5 only.
And Ratchet and Clank was.
And Miles Morales is also on PS5
Yeah.
only. But I don't know if that's a technical problem.
And so was the
I
Horizon.
tried
Ragnarok was on the 4.
Yeah.
Ragnarok was on the 4.
And the Horizon DLC, you can't.
But look, I'm not one of those
Weird.
people who thinks that, some old technology holds games back, because the PC market has kind of proved that that's wrong, right? Like you can develop for high end and low end at the same time. It requires a little bit more optimization, but it's possible, right? It's why the Series S is possible, because
Did you hear?
turn off all the
Did you
4K.
see they're porting. Sorry, Travis, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's okay.
They're porting Jedi Survivor to PS4 and Xbox One.
I mean, I would hate to see how those games run frame rate wise,
No kidding.
but good luck with that. Because I had a buddy who he was playing on the launch version of the Xbox One, and let me tell you, man, in this generation, playing on that console, what's that?
Of what game?
He was.
Oh,
just
you just
playing,
mean in general?
He was
Just-
playing all of his games. Like he had Game Pass,
Gotcha.
and he was playing on a launch edition of Xbox One. Like that was his only console. And so, like, he was like playing all the games that come to Game Pass. And he, at a certain point, he was like, "Hey, is this game supposed to be running like this?" And he would send me like a video, and it'd be like the worst thing I've ever seen. And I was just like, "No, like no, dude." And I actually ended up giving this guy like my Xbox One X, because I was just like, "This has to be better than what you're dealing with. Like that's crazy." But yeah, it was like I think that there is something about, just like on PC where there's recommended requirements or minimum requirements. I almost think you put like a either recommended console, or you just don't put it on that console if it doesn't meet some bar of how the game is supposed to perform. And I don't know any PS5 game that feels like it really needs a PS5 Pro. Like, is that the problem? I would say the problem is kind of the inverse.
Well, I mean, I think the big problem is that they've moved to this kind of 5 to 7 year development path. So their games aren't coming out very often. And then they're spending resources on remaking games from all of 6 years ago. And then I bought a product in 2020 that you say, oh, we're going to need a refresh on. And outside of Final Fantasy 16, which I don't think is worth $550 on its own, but hey, I'd have to think about it harder, is a system that I could have played almost everything on the PlayStation 4 that I already owned. So, no, you fooled me once. That's fine. Enjoy your PlayStation 5 Pro.
Exactly.
Well, I don't think the Pro models have ever been about having exclusives on the Pro version. So I don't think I don't think they're ever going to
resent purchasing into the new generation before. I can't remember feeling that even when the PlayStation 4 Pro was ready, that like the PlayStation 4 didn't have games at all.
But the PS5 has games.
PlayStation
Some
5
of them work on PS4, but
almost all of them play on the PlayStation 4. So I didn't need to purchase my PlayStation 5.
But you would have purchased your PlayStation 5 anyway, even if they were like, yeah, all games will be playable on both, because you're kind of a hardcore gamer. You would have wanted the prettier version, would you have not?
No, and I bought the PlayStation 5 on the premise that they would make games that use the PlayStation 5. I don't think the PlayStation 4 compatible games use the PlayStation 5. That was their choice. They wanted to keep their old fan base. That's fine. You can keep your old fan base. I'll see you later.
I think that's fine. Like with like God of War, right? Like I get a better experience on the PlayStation 5 than I would on the 4, just from frame rate and resolution, right? And I'm okay with that. That's fine. In loading, right? Loading times.
Loading's probably the biggest change.
It's huge. Like Ghost of Tsushima, you just press start and you're literally playing. It's one of the fastest games I've ever seen load. But anyway, I mean, I'm okay with that. The problem is right now we get 2 years into it and we're getting. I don't know if, and I'm not trying to crap on game developers, but it just seems like 3 years, whatever it is, and it's already. You can see that they're struggling with optimizing for these consoles, and I don't know if it's because of the limited power or whatever it is. I'm not a techie, so all I know is that when I got the systems, I was like, okay, this is I saw 60 FPS for the first time, and it was like I mean, I don't want. Okay, I'm going to stop right there because I was going to say something else. But it was a big revelation. It's like the first time seeing, something, and I was so I expected that, I guess, going forward, and then it turned into, oh, we're going to try to do these different things with these games, so we're pushing this differently. Then we start getting, or it's just not properly optimized, because it has to come out. You get something like Gotham Knights, where it's like. As much as I've seen of that game, it doesn't look like it particularly pushes, the limits.
It doesn't.
As opposed to, something you see like Horizon, where it's a huge world. And admittedly, they had problems when it first launched, but they did fix them very quickly after.
Mode was broken.
It was not great. Shortly after it was fixed.
But your problem is like with the marketing not matching the performance. But I think the problem with that argument is that the people who are putting the claim on the box are making games that do run at that. Like, right. Your PS5 runs 4K 60 FPS on every game that Sony made, but they can't control what Warner Brothers makes when
they can't. They
publish Gotham Knights. And I think that's sort of like the disconnect.
So what's the point of getting another one?
The point is, as you said, you have a prettier version and you quite enjoy the PS5 version of Ragnarok.
So let's simplify this, right? On Ragnarok or Forbidden West, right? You can play the quality, a lot of games. You can play quality mode or performance mode, right? You can play the high res with minor ray tracing at 30 FPS, or you can play the performance mode, which is lower resolution assets at 60 FPS. If a PS5 Pro came out and said, now you can have both, right? You can play with the quality visuals at 60 FPS. Does that matter enough to you to buy a PS5 Pro?
Because like Travis said, it's probably going to be only for the first party games. It's not really going to, I don't think it's going to translate over to the third party as much. Maybe like bigger ones like Ubisoft might be able to pull some of that stuff off.
Well, the last 4 years of Sony games, what am I supposed to be excited about? Right? Has Naughty Dog made a PlayStation 5 game?
No.
Last of Us 1, Hoeg. Come on.
Ragnarok?
Right. Like I said. Ragnarok is Santa Monica.
Oh yeah, I mean, Naughty Dog. If you're talking about that, wait, was Last of Us 2 a PS5?
No, it's PS4.
No,
but don't worry, it's coming.
But look, they take hell of long to make their games. So
that's what I'm saying. If you expand this out, then your 4 year window for your non-refresh system is BS.
Yeah,
you're saying because they haven't put any games that are made natively for PS5.
No.
Well, what about Returnal? Was that PS5? I think that was.
Returnal is
PS5 only. Yes.
Housemarque is a Sony studio.
First party.
I didn't say Sony. I said Naughty Dog on this. Yes, but Housemarque.
Oh,
is
but
Housemarque's good at making games.
But I mean, putting one studio is a pretty narrow qualifier, right? Like Sony has made games that were PS5 games.
Yes.
And what's Santa Monica doing then? We have no idea.
They
what's
made
Sucker Punch
Ragnarok.
working on?
Just put out Ragnarok.
No clue.
Presumably, they'll just make another God of War.
Yeah. I don't
Right,
think so.
Well,
We
I
have
mean,
no-
we're off onto a different topic now, but I mean, generally, we don't know a lot of what Sony first parties work on.
Right,
They've
and that's
been
the
pretty
problem
quiet.
with trying to give you a PS4 Pro, like the code said, a year from now, you're not going to have anything that's going to come out with it that's going to, at least that we know of right now.
4 years is too small a window for the current development times. So
And really,
bite
the
me,
PS5,
both of you. This isn't a Sony. This isn't a Sony aimed argument.
with you,
When you
though.
talk to me about the Xbox Pro, I'll say the same thing.
he just
Yeah.
wanted to get- he just wanted to
So
get-
let's talk about
Actually, the
Xbox.
Xbox Pro, I would say, is even worse. Please don't do it.
So so I didn't think you were going to be that aggressive on the PS5 Pro, but on the Xbox side, less credible sources right now, but things are starting to swirl that two things are coming. We know about the streaming kind of non-console needed stick that's been around for a while, but two new things is a Series X digital only, right? So same hardware, digital
Fine.
only.
Should've done
Fine,
that.
do
That seems pretty obvious.
Yep.
No big deal.
It'll
The
be
next one
smaller.
is
Sounds good.
The S is
The
digital only, isn't it?
Correct.
but
the
it's
S is
not
digital
good.
only. Yes.
But I'm hoping that the X being digital only will make its form smaller because
Yes.
I can't fit my Series X in my briefcase.
The S is so small. I love it.
Briefcase.
Yeah. That's a
Yes, is
problem.
crazy small. I hadn't actually
No.
held one in person until I went to the Halo thing with Pompa last year, and he brought his Series S. I
Wait,
was like,
what?
Jesus.
You don't
It's
own a
crazy.
Series S?
No, I've always thought about buying one. I just haven't
But
I
why?
have
love-
5
I love
Series
the S.
S's, bro. That's the GOAT
for
console.
traveling.
That
Dan,
would
like,
be it.
like
That
I
would
wish.
be it.
Yeah, it's nice just to be able to move around. Plus, I
One
can
in every room, bro. Let's do it.
PC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, the latest kind of swirling behind the scenes is that Xbox 2 has mid-gen refresh coming in 2025.
I thought they
So,
weren't doing that.
I started to think back on this, and I was like, yeah, the Xbox One X was a year after the Pro, wasn't it? The PS4 Pro. So if
Yeah.
you go back and look, it was 2016 and 2017. So anyway, no details whatsoever, but I'm just letting you know that rumors are swirling that Xbox will be doing the same in 2025. So it sounds like
Gross.
your guys' minds are already kind of made up, but that is 2
Hey, look,
years.
I'm the only one on the panel whose views are consistent when you ask me about Nintendo, PlayStation, and Xbox. I say no. I say
They know all of
no.
them, too.
This isn't
Yeah.
a refresh for the Switch. It's 6
I
years
know,
old.
I know.
And,
It's
and
an
nobody
old
can
gun.
complain about the
7
Nintendo
years old.
products that have released on the Switch.
That's true. Well, actually, that's not
Well, I
true.
can on their
Ains
ports,
can.
but the new
Ains can-
products.
Ains can complain about what.
No, I
Nintendo's
can't.
releasing
I
on
mean,
Switch.
if you look at, to Hoag's point, if you look at the games Nintendo has produced on the Switch, including some of their partnerships with third parties, they've crushed it. I can't deny that.
I mean, Mario Odyssey and Breath of the Wild are in the first 6 months of the system.
Yeah, I mean, they've crushed it. I can't deny that. The fact that Mario Kart 8 has sold 60 million copies on the Switch after being a Wii U game, that's nuts. But
Mhm.
I can't argue with it.
Yeah.
I mean, they know what they're doing, right? But anyway, so if you think about it this way, though, Hoag, you just said something which kind of hit me kind of funny, which is the Switch would be 6 years. It'll be 7 years, actually, once it
7 years,
releases, right? But if you think the Xbox Series X, maybe triple X in 2025,
Triple X.
that would
That'll
be
Elon's. That'll be Elon's
that would be
Xbox.
5 years.
Vin Diesel has
5
to announce
years
that
po-
console if that happens. With Triple X.
Instead of The Rock, they'll go with Vin Diesel this time.
Yeah. Triple
That'll
X.
be 5 years post launch of the Series X. So keep in mind that's 2 years and maybe a few months from now. Would that make it any better, or do you have to see what they do in these next 2 years?
I think 5 years is better than 4 years. I think that's obvious enough. But Xbox
Yeah.
has
Sure.
had a real desert of content for long periods of time during this run. So I would resent it as well.
Yeah, but that sounds more like when that comes out, that's more realistic with everything that they've shown that they're working on. I feel like they could launch that.
That's true. If you
With-
take all the first party
alongside
stuff
with-
they announced this
Right.
year, right?
If they pull that off and they can do it all together, launch that system with say 3 of those big AAA games that they've been working on.
That's not a refresh. You just want them to launch the next gen.
Well, I mean,
Yeah,
it's
that's
a
next gen.
no, well, not necessarily because this is all coming on. You can play it all on the Series X too, right? But
Well,
that's
getting more into the question of like what's a refresh and what's not, right? Like I expect the next generation to be backwards compatible. So
yeah,
right,
but
so at this
refresh
point,
is also
they all
backwards
melted
compatible. So what's
together.
the difference? Because it used to be that console generations were generations and were significant because they weren't backwards compatible and they were a completely new idea, etc. But now they're basically just more like the Series X is basically just a console hardware refresh of what the Xbox One ended up being by the end of its life cycle. So I don't know if they're significant anymore. They're just branding basically. It's like marketed as a new console generation, but
well, that's also why I won't be getting a refresh, right? It's like I need more than 4 years out of my PlayStation 5 purchase. So.
But I think that's okay. So like I think in the future consoles will probably be more like the cell phone market where they don't really want to sell you a phone every year. They just want you to buy the phone when it's your time to upgrade. And I think if they keep on the path they're at where we're getting new consoles every 3 years, it'll be like, all right, you skip one, you get the next one, and that's kind of normal and okay. So I just to be clear, I don't have a problem with any of these people doing anything. I don't have a problem with the Switch getting a new console generation. It makes sense. They're at the point in time. I don't know if I question if they need it. That's why I'm opposition to it. But if the console refresh for the PS5 Pro and the Xbox Series X 2 or whatever the heck it ends up being come out, and they're still fully backwards compatible with everything in that generation and the previous generations as well in Xbox's case, like, does it matter that much if you skip it? You can buy it if it makes sense for your particular setup or the frame rate you're trying to get or whatever. But like, I feel like we're headed toward a market where it matters less, and that
those lines are blurred
happy.
more for sure.
Yeah, I
agree with
that's
you.
Probably a good thing.
I completely agree with you. I think it sounds like where our discussion is leading, and I'm sure we're not alone on this, right? Is we're describing essentially the PC market at this point, right? Where you upgrade when you want to upgrade. And if you want peak performance, you've got your high-end GPU and CPU. And if you don't want to spend all that money or don't want to upgrade, you don't have to, but you can still play the vast majority of the games. But I guess the question I was going to pose is, it feels like what we're saying is then developers need to get to a point where they're supporting consoles and the options of performance more like PCs. Because I feel like the development of the games is
doing that, right? That's why you have quality
slowly
mode, performance mode, and balance and all that stuff. Like that's kind of the first barrier to fall. They're kind of showing some of that stuff, and like with FOV now, and
but I don't want a bunch of toggles on my console games.
No.
And I don't want to have to pay double for 8 years than I used to.
Damn
right?
right.
But Hoeg, you're the one who praised the quality mode, performance mode option, right? And so you kind of do want
that
some
one
of those
toggle.
Yeah, because it eliminates the toggles. That's exactly right.
I don't know. They got you one. There's gonna be 2, 3. Who knows how many toggles by the 4.
Nope.
But I do.
I think my least favorite part about Baldur's Gate 3 this week was reminding myself how much I hate going in and out, and messing with toggles, and trying to figure out where the performance is okay for me.
Yeah. I also have that hatred of the PC platform, but the reason I use cell phones as my parallel rather than PC is because I think PC and the reason it's not really going to work on console is because it requires too much input from the user and knowing about CPU and GPU, and like it's so specific to like that market that wants to tinker. I think console is going to be a lot more simple. It's going to be like, hey, this is the 14. Last year was the 13. Do you want this year? No, that's fine. Most of the stuff will still work. Your mileage will vary. You're probably going to have to upgrade in 3 years, but you don't have to upgrade every year unless you're a diehard. I think that's where it'll be. And I think that's probably okay, but it does mean that those console manufacturers need to get their ducks in a row and make it very clear on what backwards compatibility looks like forever into the future, and assure the customers that that is the kind of new model. And I don't think they've earned that trust yet, which is why Hoeg is, objecting to this, is because it's not Apple making an iPhone every year where things more or less work the same. It's sometimes you have to reset your entire library. Sometimes the PSVR 2 comes out and it slaps you in the face and says you don't get to take anything with you. And I think that is a problem for consumer trust, and it's a disadvantage if they really want to make that transition, which I do think they do want that. I think they want to kind of get over the forever resetting console generations thing.
And give me an option, right? Like I can take my phone over to Verizon and trade it in for a pretty good chunk of money towards my new phone. Let me do that with the consoles to a certain extent. Not at GameStop.
No, but that's what All Access attempted to do too.
Yeah, but that
Yeah. Also, I think the reason
very
that model
specific.
doesn't work, Dan, is because part of the reason your cell phone is worth so much money is because they also lock you into a contract when you trade in. That's what you get the
All
discount
access
for.
was.
It's the contract. And
Right.
so I think unless consoles start asking people for yearly contracts, which I really hope they don't do, that model's not going to work. But I do think it's fine. Consoles aren't
that all access
$1,000.
concept. I mean, you're going to see more of 3 years.
Yeah,
of
literally,
Game Pass
that's what that was. That's
3
what
years
you
of Game
described.
Pass and your Xbox is $50 or whatever. I mean, you're going to see more of that.
For those who don't know what Xbox All Access was, because it's super niche, it was a service that allowed you to pay for your console and Game Pass over time. It was basically
2
getting
years.
a console as a service, more or less, kind of like leasing a car, I guess is kind of the closest parallel I can think of. It was, nobody knew about it. It had big marketing problems, but the people who did know about it, like my buddy Raul, who is a very casual gamer, he saw All Access and he said, that's the best deal I've ever seen in my life. $20 a month for 2 years. And at the end I get to keep the console. Hell yeah. And he signed up for that. And, so it did have a certain market, but I think that subscription could be possible in the future. I just think it's super foreign to today's buyer of consoles and video games.
100%.
It's just not, it's not really, it doesn't make sense to them in their brain. There's some people that just want to buy Madden every year, put it in tray and play a game. Like that's like Raul's one of those guys who's just like that. So,
well, and to your point, Dan, you said, I want to be able to trade in my console, and in theory, if this was the model, right?
To those companies, not GameStop or something like that.
But that's the thing. You said not GameStop, but you don't trade your phone into Apple. You trade your phone into Verizon.
But that's where I got the phone originally.
Yeah, but it's not the company that makes it.
And they have contracts with, whoever they need to have. I can get $700 for my phone that I paid $1,000 for the year before. That's still a pretty big loss, but nevertheless, it's a lot cheaper than another
because you're
$1,000.
agreeing to give them $2,000 over the next year and a half or whatever, alongside them buying your phone. Like that's different.
But you're talking about my plan and stuff. Yeah, I mean, I understand that part. But
if you could trade in your Xbox to Microsoft and then also while you're upgrading buy a 2-year Game Pass subscription, I'm sure they'd be happy to buy your console for more money than
I could see that potentially happening at some point.
You're getting into car lot type stuff.
It's just that I don't want that, Dan. Like I know you kind of see it as like, why can't I do that? But like think about how much the monetization of console landscape would have to change for that to be true. And like I've never heard anybody be like, oh, you know what? The console market's missing. I wish it was more like Comcast. You know what I mean? I wish it was more like my Verizon relationship. Like that seems like the wrong way to go. And so I'm kind of glad we don't have that.
I don't know. I mean, I want to buy it back from you for $300. We're going to refurb it, which costs us probably pennies, right? And then we're going to sell it for $400. All right. We didn't make any money the first go around. This time, maybe we do. Maybe a little bit on top, the hardware sales that they don't make. Normally they don't make a whole lot, on their hardware that they sell. It's getting the people into.
I don't know if
ideally there's a whole system that would have to be worked out. But
the logistics are the toughest part of that conversation.
Right. Yeah.
They don't have storefront, right? So you're shipping consoles back and forth all over the place.
I mean, there was a time where this is diving super deep into console lore, but there was a time where Xbox had a deal with Best Buy and Walmart to buy everybody's physical discs back from them and give them digital codes for all the games they owned. Do you guys remember this? This never happened, but like there was infrastructure in place for it to happen because Xbox's plan
was voodoo stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So there's actually precedent for it in the movie space as well. But there was a plan on Microsoft's side that did not see the light of day because of the enormous failures of the Xbox One, where they were going to get rid of all discs. And part of the way they were going to do that is by having their retail partners buy video games back from people, which is crazy. Or I think it was a trade-in program. Actually,
they don't even need to take the discs. I mean, at least when I did when I digitized my movie collection, Walmart would just essentially go through the UPCs of the discs that you had and prove that you had the disc, and then you'd get the digital code for our ultraviolet wallet.
That's pretty cool. My understanding was this was a trade system where you
like
could decide to convert to digital, and I would have done that in an instant because I have a shelf full of physical discs that I would literally, if you were like, Travis, go get the disc, I'll be like, just buy it on the console. I'll own it twice. You know what I mean? Like, just
I was going to get a divorce if I kept buying discs. So
yeah.
Man, well, Interesting conversation. I guess we'll see what actually happens in reality. I think it sounds like the first thing we're going to hear about in reality will be from Nintendo, probably relating to what's going to happen with the Switch next
Well, they're
year.
usually up for a new Direct pretty soon, right? Like maybe September.
Yeah, hopefully. I guess we'll see. I mean, they've got what's the big release they have coming later this year? Wonder, thank you. Yeah, and Mario RPG that they're bringing back, of course. Now there you go. I'm actually going to pick my Switch up because I am pumped about
that
Wonder.
game. Is sick, dude. They're going to make so much money. I think that's going to secure a sequel for that game. Finally, that remake is
Mario RPG or Wonder
RPG.
RPG.
I think RPG.
It's going to be cool that a whole new audience gets to see that game.
I think that
made at a time that is long gone.
I've looked at the metrics of how many people watched that announcement on IGN, and I think that game is going to sell so well. I think they'll make a second one, which is long overdue.
That'd be cool.
I mean, it's going to be huge. Yeah,
that'd be cool.
It's a very specific kind of flavor for the 90s.
It is.
So
it is.
I mean, and Square Enix is gone. So
Squaresoft, right? Yeah,
Squaresoft. Thank you. Is gone. So yeah, that'd be interesting.
What did that happen?
Square Enix is gone. They're dead.
No, they just did a deal with Magic the Gathering. They were going to bring Final Fantasy. What happened?
All right, we've got some super chats to catch up on. Two of these have been sitting for a little while. Apologies, I didn't expect the voraciousness of the console announcements to come through.
Nisa Howard with the $2 super chat. My friends and I play Rollmaster. I don't know what that is. What is that?
It's got to be a TTRPG.
Yeah, maybe
TTRPG,
or it's a completely different topipic.
Yeah, it's actually
yeah. Back to our TTRPG. We've got two of these actually, so
yeah,
that's cool.
It's a BDSM TTRPG. So
thanks for sharing, Travis.
Yeah, nice.
Joking.
Nice.
I'm joking. It's a
I know he's joking.
I didn't think he was joking after the
well, here's the thing
is
sometimes I feel like I have to say I'm joking because I once on this podcast claimed that my safe word was pumpkin patch, and I feel like a lot of people in the comments took that literally because they're like, oh, now we know Travis is into kinky sex, like he actually has a safe word. And I was like, bro, I was just talking shit. I did not. I got so many messages about that. They were like, you're gross. I was like, what the dude, I was joking. Yeah, anyway.
I mean, come on. You wouldn't add a second word anyway. It would just be like pumpkins or something.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
Right.
Amateurs. Yeah, you might not even get patch out. You know what I mean? Anyway, moving on. Shoosh.
With the €5. Speaking of tabletop RPGs, Gen Con has started, and people already stole $300,000 worth of stuff from there. Play Rogue, people. It's hilarious.
Don't
play
steal.
Rogue.
Yeah.
Don't steal, kids.
I'm going to go the opposite route. I'm going to encourage you to steal. And by the way, this podcast does count as legal advice, and it does create a.
And I believe isn't Hoeg representing you?
Yeah.
It does create. It does create. This podcast does create an attorney-client privilege with me because I follow IGN's long-standing tradition of snitches get stitches. I will not rat. So everybody's got attorney-client privilege with me, man. I ain't no rat. Let's go.
Oh man, too funny.
What's important to note is that the Seasoned Gaming Bitcast does not engage in the unauthorized practice of law.
Well,
thank you.
Not all of our members.
Yeah.
This is where I mute Travis.
Pumpkin patch. Pumpkin patch.
That disclaimer was Hoeg's safe word. Hoeg's safe word is a legal disclaimer.
Oh my God.
That's gonna be our loud announcement we make when we want to move on to something we're not comfortable with. I want to know more about this $300,000 with this stuff. I'm gonna have to look that up.
It's probably
all right,
like
Shoosh, thank
Warhammer 40K stuff. That's
convention halls, man.
Yeah, somebody stole from
like
a warehouse or something on the show floor.
Stuff is expensive.
Nice. Pampa.
Yeah, $10 ship. With Xbox saying they won't ever lose the power narrative, would that be part of the reason to release a new system to counter the PS5 Pro?
Probably.
I mean,
yeah, it could be. I mean,
maybe.
So one of the things that's interesting about this conversation, right, is I think I said that when I was in LA in June, we had dinner with Jason Ronald, right? And Jason Ronald is director of hardware management for Xbox, right? He's the guy, long beard, you see on the Series X things at the start and everything. And he's super nice. One of the nicest guys you ever meet. I love Jason to death. And I've talked to him a lot about this. But one of the questions someone asked him at dinner was around this. So I was like, if PlayStation releases a Pro, are you guys countering? And one of the points he made is that he's very careful in what he says, of course. But one of the points he made, and he wanted to be clear to everyone, is that these decisions are made several years to a decade in advance. He said, we're already planning our hardware a decade out right now. So I guess what I'm saying is, to Pampa's point, my guess would be yes, because you would have to think that, say, 7, 8, 9 years ago, when the Series X was kind of finalized in terms of specs, and they're thinking about what comes after that, they probably were thinking we're going to need to do a mid-gen refresh because they want to stay on top of the power curve, and it won't be enough time to where they can go fully what we would call next gen, even though based on our conversation that kind of goes out the window. But whatever that next arc of tech is. So long-winded way to say, yes, I do think they will release it. Yes, I do think the rumors are true. And yes, I do think whatever they release will one-up the PS5 Pro.
Yeah, I
Even
think
though,
Xbox's
just to be
strategy-
clear, Jason did not indicate any of that. I'm just letting you know that they plan way in advance. There's no world where they internally at Microsoft say, oh, PS5's doing a Pro, we better do one, and then they start doing one.
Right.
Like, it doesn't work that
so
way.
I'm slightly less like eye roll inducing about Xbox releasing a hardware refresh, because I think that they have been a lot more clear about what their backwards compatibility plan is, and I think they have a little bit more of my trust there. So I'm like, all right, yeah, if you'll release a more powerful console, if I want it, I'll upgrade, and if I don't, I'll be fine. That's sort of my thinking on their platform. But that said, they have an interesting strategy, because they're trying to be the most powerful, but they're also trying to be the cheapest traditional console out there. They're kind of competing with the Switch. In fact, in court, there was an argument that the Series S is more of a play against the Switch than the PS5, which I don't think is true, but they did claim that. But yeah, I think they have to hit them from both sides if they want to continue that narrative of like, hey, we've got this cheap option that is super consumer friendly, and also we've got the most expensive one, because what they can't do is keep playing toward power and let PS5 goad them into making a $600 console that makes them look like they're the PS3. You know what I mean? Like that situation.
Yeah, very fair.
I think that's what Xbox 360 did. I think Xbox 360 was like, look, we made this cool, powerful console, and PlayStation got all, upset about it. Like, wow, that's a powerful console. No, we can't get bested. Like, let's make an even more powerful one. And then they ended up making a console that was doomed to flop because they got goaded into going too powerful. I think Xbox wants to avoid that. So I think they need a low cost option if they're going to keep climbing up the power ladder.
And I think your point is kind of doubled down by the fact that if this is 2025 as rumored, right, you're at a point then where you would have the Series S at potentially what, a 199 or less, 149 maybe even by then, 2025 option, where you would have the Series X down to a 300 console, 350, and then you could have your Series XXX pumpkin patch at at 500 or whatever,
I
as
hope
your
they call it
premier
the Series
console.
XXX pumpkin patch.
XXX. Yeah, you've already got one of those, Ames. You're playing through that right now.
Yeah, that's my girl right there.
Yeah, dude, she's the best. So I would hope that they continue the Series S line of console, not because your point is taken, right? Like the Series X could sort of become what the S is now if they keep making them. But my problem with that is that it's not optimized for what that console's trying to do, which is give an answer to people who don't have 4K TVs about how they can be involved in the current console generation. And I think that you kind of need to make
S did well.
Yeah, I think you need to make an S2 that still runs in 1080p, but can run more powerful games. Like, for example, the reason Baldur's Gate 3 is coming to Xbox last is because of the difficulty with split screen co-op in the Series S. And that's just because of optimization with the fact that it's a 1080p console that, it can run all the same games. It just runs them at a quarter of the resolution, which, a lot of people are okay with that. A lot of people do not have 4K TVs. So why does it matter to them? And I think that line it should continue. I don't want it to just be buy last year's Series X if you are a 1080p player. I don't think that's the right answer.
And in answer to the question, I think it's a part of the reason that you might release a new one, right? As Ains said, I think the important part to note is it wouldn't just be a reaction in an email chain when the PlayStation 5 Pro is announced, but even planning 7 to 10 years ahead, I think you create off ramps. You're following things. All right, if we need to do this, we do this here, but you're still making that decision. at some point where it makes sense, where you can figure out the logistics and how you're bringing in the actual material to make these boxes.
Of course.
And so part of the story would be, yes, Sony's going to have a product out, and so we want to have a product out or not. I do think Microsoft probably doesn't continue forever and ever we have to have the strongest box out there, because I don't think that's a winning play long term. I think some of the stuff you saw in the trial and some of the stuff you've seen lately in terms of content is acknowledgement that teraflops are great, shiniest box is great, but it maybe isn't moving the needle enough to justify the increased expense.
Yep. People who want the most powerful gaming machine out there already have a platform. It's called PC. And I don't know that people on console really care too much about which box is the most powerful. I mean, there's certainly a section of people who do that, and they're on Twitter, and you can find them if you want, but I wouldn't recommend it. But most people, I think,
they seem very happy in their lives.
Yeah, they seem like they're tortured souls. But I've been on some of their shows, unfortunately. But I think
me too.
Yeah. But I do think that what console players do want is they want a curated experience. They want to feel like when they take the box out, it's already set up and it works and runs the types of games at the resolutions and frame rates that the curator wants them to run at. And I don't think that you get that bespoke feel if you're just putting out a box so that it can be more powerful than whatever the PlayStation people did. And so I think a reactive box like that, where, oh, well, we have to be the most powerful, will lead to a version that feels like it doesn't really have a place. It's like, okay, well, it's slightly more powerful, but not that much. And, you know, it'll just lead to like a not curated feel, I think. So I would urge them to put their vision for what their box should be ahead of just the larger landscape of where they sit in the market. And I hope that they don't chase Sony that way, because it's never been successful for them. They don't succeed when they chase Sony. They succeed when they decide to do something completely different, like Game Pass. And I think that's their path.
All right, give me software, screw the hardware. I mean, give me some good software and I'll be fine.
Yeah. Well, it takes both to succeed.
I already told you to get a Nintendo.
Yeah.
That's
practically their motto. Screw hardware. Here's some software. Yeah.
Thank you, Pom. Appreciate you. And by the way, Pampa is to blame for me playing so much Halo, by the way. Blame him.
I know. I always do blame him.
Yeah. It's his fault. But no, I mean, I know I'm in the minority when I say this, but I am that guy who is giving the most powerful console hardware, right? You got a PS5 Pro, you got an Xbox Super Series X, Triple X. I'll be buying it.
Well, I was that guy 3 years ago.
I have been
now
historically.
So
I just don't think this has been a strong few years. Obviously, there's reasons that happened from 2020 on, but
no, I agree with everything you guys said. That's my point, right? Like, I agree with everything you guys said. I probably would even agree that it's not good value to buy those consoles at launch. None of that really matters, because at the end of the day, to me, I prefer playing on console when I can. Mm-hmm. And if I can play on console where the experience is better, even if it's marginal, that's where I'm going to be. I mean,
and I can't promise I won't be in line with you at the Target when it comes to that, but I would be resentful of it.
Fair enough. What'd you say, Travis?
Why don't you just play on PC if you're like a power player? Like, what's
no, but I do. And I do. And I play more on PC since I've got my new PC here, right? But I still prefer if there's a game where I can play at the same settings, essentially, right, between console and PC, I'm going to play on console.
So to you, you don't like the, balancing act of having to manage your needy ass PC that is like a high maintenance girlfriend that just won't. Is that the problem? It's the non-curated feel. Okay.
Well, and it's just. It's again, like I said, I'm in the minority. I know that, and I'm very personal. But I have big TV, home theater set up. That's how I like to play my games if I can.
Me too.
Right on the couch.
Have you? I have two gaming PCs, and one is in the office. It's the traditional, PC on dual monitor situation. My other gaming PC is in this room, and it's connected to
traditional PC on dual monitors. How
old? Well, Yeah, no. I'm talking about traditional gaming PC of today. It's just normal, right? And then the one I have here is connected to a television. And let me tell you, you will never have a worse gameplay experience than when you connect any PC to a television.
I have tried.
They are not designed to go together. They will not run, even if your TV runs the right frames and the right resolutions. They will not be compatible. You will constantly run into problems, and eventually you're just going to have to unplug it and put it in the other room, because it is a nightmare. Like it is
Yes.
so bad trying to play on a television.
I'm always amazed at the people that have those setups working.
No.
I was
Dude,
watching.
I'm sorry.
I mean, I have it working, Hoeg. Like mine works. I have the laptop, the lap board with the.
I was watching somebody play Baldur's Gate 3 with a Bluetooth Xbox controller and a laptop under the TV, and I was like, yeah, I should do that. And every single time I try to do that, it always becomes a nightmare, and I hate wasting my time.
I hate it.
So that's the thing, is that the part you didn't see in that video of that guy doing it is that he went through all of that. Like, so that's why, because I do it, man. Like I just reviewed Blasphemous 2 and I did it on my PC on this television. But like every time I try to play a game on a TV through a PC, I had to jump through like 15 hoops. And so like I got there, but like it's just, if you want that, people say, oh, just buy a PC. But to Ains's point, sometimes you just want to be on a couch with a controller. And if you're trying to do that with a PC, there's no solution for you unless your TV is a monitor and it's a foot away from you. And I think that's like my biggest problem with the PC.
Remember when Steam came out with big picture mode and they were like, oh, now you can just play your PC games anytime on TV. And I'm like, you're full of crap. No,
it didn't work at all.
No.
Yeah. So that's the point, Hoeg, is you can do it, but it is a nightmare. Every time you configure a new game, you have to dive into NVIDIA settings and toggle 20 different things and then test and then retest and close the app and try again. And then finally you get settings that work. And then you send a social media post to Hoeg to make him jealous of the setup.
Right. Well, and then there'll be a TV screen flashing. And then there'll be some posts somewhere in the dark corners of the internet that say your specific model of TV doesn't interact with this specific driver in this specific way. And no, I'd rather plug in my PlayStation.
Yeah, so I mean that's my point, right? Like, and I've had a blast playing on PC. In fact, I only play Halo on my PC now. True story. So I sit here and play Halo every time on my PC because I can run at 240 frames, which is ridiculous, right? It's super smooth. But if I can have a console that's high end and can play 4K 60 on my TV and some games at 120, like there's a lot of games actually I play at 120 on Series X, then that's what I usually choose to do. So anyway. But I think all the points you guys made about the hardware and, we need to see more out of it. I think Dan made a good point around with Xbox, like PlayStation, we really don't know what's coming. We need to know what's coming from them in the future, which is kind of weird to say because they've been so good about curating their game experiences over the past several years. And it's flipped now. We know what's coming for Xbox. We don't know what's coming for PlayStation, which is kind of weird. But
do we have a lot of good optics after Starfield? Am I just not thinking of things? Like, I know we know there's stuff like out in the distance.
No, they have a whole quarterly release schedule for 2024 already.
There's a whole bunch of stuff for November too.
Yeah, and I was talking about even farther out 2025. If they release that mid-gen refresh, if they could do it with 2 or 3 big AAA games, you might be able to pick up, some people going that route. But at the same time, they still have to deliver. Starfield still has to hit. We need that's what I'm looking for now. So,
agreed. And these games quality is TBD, right? We need to see them do well. The crazier thing, which I don't want to keep us going forever here, but the last thing that just occurred to me as we were talking about this is if it is holiday 2025, right? Mm-hmm. Activision Blizzard should be done by then.
Yes, I feel comfortable in saying it'll be done by then.
But Call of Duty at that point and anything they're working on, as I understand it, you guys may know better than me, as I understand it, the Call of Duty marketing rights end with PlayStation in 2024. Or is it this year? It's either this year or next year, which would mean that, to your point, Dan, they would be at the point where they could start to market not only all the stuff they have from first party today, but including Activision Blizzard as Xbox first party with a new console in 2025.
PlayStation will never have a marketing deal with Activision ever again, even if the acquisition doesn't go through, because they've burned that bridge forever.
So just a thought that just popped in my head as we were talking. But anyway,
no time for Destiny.
Let's talk about Destiny next week.
Next
week we'll talk about that. I will say very briefly, I finished Twisted Metal last night, the series. I don't know if anyone else has watched it or finished it. Episode 10, which is the finale of season 1, was the most Twisted Metal-ish of the episodes. It was like watching a video game of Twisted Metal.
Cool. I have not finished it.
Okay, so I think you'll like 10, the finale, and it introduces some key characters and some key plot points for season 2. So obviously they're setting it up to be more, but it definitely felt more like the video game at the end than the beginning, which is, I guess, good. So,
well, I
enjoyed it.
I mentioned it last week. I'm positive we were introduced to Calypso in the first episode.
Well,
and then,
yeah.
I mean, I don't think they were hiding it really.
Yeah.
But, and then I've enjoyed it kind of. It's a really weird tone. I'm in like episode 7. So Sweet Tooth has gotten to go crazy a little bit. And it's a bizarre tone. It had one of the stranger sex scenes I've seen since Halo.
That too. Yeah. It is all over the place. Yeah. So,
but I actually am enjoying it. I like the coloration. I think they really have captured Roadkill in particular as a car in a way that I didn't think that they could. So that's been nice. I am looking forward to finishing it up. So I will look forward to episode 10, but we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fine. It was entertaining. I will say that. I would. It's not something I'm putting up there as, fantastic or amazing critically or anything, but it's an entertaining show. If you just want to veg out to something stupid,
it's entertaining and it is silly. Now I think I mentioned this last week. They're a little too addicted to 90s music. I assume that's because that's when the game originally released.
More's coming. Yeah, more comes.
Yeah. I don't think of Twisted Metal as specifically 90s, but that might just be because I lived through those.
That might just also be what they chose for their style. I noticed some game or some movies just choose like an era and they just run with it.
I think if anything, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 and Twisted Metal have proved to me that I was never really into 90s music.
Interesting.
Oh man. Damn. I was just talking to someone the other day, a group, we were saying how good 90s music was. Damn.
There's a lot of good rap in the 90s. But
we said rap in kind of the grunge metal era. Yeah. Great.
That is very not me. That is not what I'm into.
You don't like rap?
I like Twisted Metal's use of Hanson. So look forward to that. You like Mbop? You got that?
Wait a minute, what?
Yes, they play Mbop in the show. Yes, they do.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
All right, but Tupac.
Ironically, I'm hoping.
Tupac.
I think everything Twisted Metal does is ironically.
Okay.
Yeah, that's true too. Anyway, all right, let's go ahead, guys. We hit almost a 3-hour show today. We've been all over the place. I'm never starting pre-show by saying we don't have a lot to talk about again.
Yeah, so light news week. Thanks, bro.
We actually have 3 topics on our list we didn't even get to, which is hilarious. Anyway, let's go ahead and close it out this week. Over on the Seasoned Gaming side, a couple articles up. Statue videos, if you're into the gaming collectible side, check out the channel. The one I just did of Dark Souls 3 Nameless King is up. It's absolutely ridiculous. And I just got sent a replacement of a near $2,000 statue that was a piece of garbage that I got last year. They sent me a replacement. I'm doing the video on that tomorrow. We'll see if they fix things or not. This could be very interesting. And then lastly, we're going to do Cast Co-op this week on Tuesday. So if you want to join us for that, we'll be live Tuesday night. Travis, let's start with you this week, man.
All right. First off, Hanson played at my college one year, and it was horrifying. So that's what I have to say about that.
I wonder what those guys are up to today.
So they actually had a concert that night, and keep in mind, I went to college like not that long ago. That's just so like they were like washed up, like it was like old news, and they didn't do Mbop. They did a bunch of songs nobody's ever heard of, and then they were like,
because nobody's ever heard of any of their other songs.
Of course.
That's the problem.
And then they said, we're doing a full concert tonight, including Mbop, that you can see if you buy a ticket and go there. And so it was like kind of annoying. Anyway, so yeah, Mbop. I've got a lot going on this week. I've got my review of Blasphemous 2, I think is going live this week. It might be the week after. I've got a couple previews that are going live, and then I'm going to start playing Starfield next week. So won't be able to talk about that, but that'll happen, and then maybe I'll be reviewing it. We'll see, but I'm definitely making content for it. So good times.
Awesome. I hope I am joining you. We will see. So, by the way, I just looked up Hanson today. This is Hanson today.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, like that's a little bit more frightening to hear Mbop from.
They look like Nickelback.
They do.
I'll be honest, I don't know what they looked like before. So to me, I'm like, yeah,
it's their final form.
Makes sense.
You don't know what
Hanson looked like? They were kids.
I mean, I saw them when they went to my campus, and they looked like that. So, like, to me, that's just Mbop. Dude, I was listening to Tupac in the '90s. I have no
I'm
idea.
just happy they're all alive, man. That's
What's
awesome.
funny is that Hanson and Mbop, even in the '90s, was a bit of an ironic throwback.
It was.
Then to play Mbop as an ironic '90s throwback is just too much for me.
So this is how people picture Hanson, Travis.
Yes.
Oh, they're ladies. That's crazy.
Yes, they're ladies.
Yeah, that was them. So very different. Very different.
No, they were dudes when I saw them.
Hey, you're in San Francisco, you know.
Yeah, things change. Times change.
Oh, what you got going on, man?
Well, assuming that I'm not on the Seasoned Gaming Bitcast for the remainder of the week, I am very likely to do some more videos in the virtual legality space and
Nice.
I don't know, practice law. Lawyers and Dragons finale was yesterday, so we won't have a Lawyers and Dragons next week, and I don't know when season 3 will be, but
Okay.
we'll be around. HoegLaw on Twitter, still X, whatever you want to call it, and on YouTube. Yeah, we'll see what happens. We'll see if there's any big news.
The app formerly known as Twitter is what I.
Yeah, formerly known as Twitter.
Yeah.
Which still sounds better than X.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right, guys. Chat, you've been awesome today. Anyone checking this out, as always, thank you. Thank you for hanging out with us with another silly edition of Bitcast this week, the 3-hour version, apparently. And as always, hope you're enjoying your gaming. Check out Baldur's Gate 3. It is really excellent if you enjoy those types of games, of course. And, of course, we will see you next Sunday. Peace.